I know there's a song called Wake Me Up When September Ends, but there should be a song called Wake Me Up When June Ends, because good Lord, the Yankees need June to end stat. Like it's not good. All right, guys, we don't have like a full on plan like we normally do. We're just going to talk about how bad the Yankees offense is right now, and even their defense. Their pitching,
management,
their pitching is totally off the hook. Totally off the hook. Yeah, I mean, Yarbrough, what he was able to do today, you should win every single game. Same thing with Will Warren. Same thing for Clark Schmidt. Same thing for Max Fried. This is repulsive. This is honestly repulsive. They're wasting this good pitching. Like I said, it's going in the rotation where you will see over the course of time the pitching is going to get bad, or it's going to have one of those dry spells, and that's when the hitting will get going. But that's too little too late, and you end up losing both when you do that. So we'll get into it. Before we do, please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. We're going to need you because, man, I don't think I've ever had less of a desire to talk about this team than I do right now. I just, it looks, and the thing that sucks is I don't want to say team, Gary. I don't want to say team, because it is a team. You lose as a team. I get that. But the pitching is just so good right now. That's what's making this doubly frustrating. Every single loss they have is down to the wire. It's 1 run, it's 2 runs, and it's because the pitching is keeping them in games that they shouldn't even be in. And so that's what's really bothering me. But there's nobody that bothered me more today than Anthony Volpe. Volpe got thrown out at second. He had the worst error you could possibly have in that situation, and he was horrendous at the plate. Can we finally just start admitting, like throughout the year, like what I've been saying, Anthony Volpe is not an elite defender? Like I understand a lot of people think he's great. I don't think he's great. I think he's good. I think more often than not, he's an average defender, and he doesn't have a strong arm, as I've said. But how many times does he boot the ball? And I feel like I'm always hearing Michael Kay and Volpe boots it. Why am I always hearing that? If this is a Gold Glove level shortstop, Gary, I shouldn't have to sit there and panic when the ball is hit to Volpe. That hit, and actually the first thing I thought of is Tim Hill. He's going to generate soft contact, and they're not going to be able to get the double play. But actually, Tim Hill generated hard contact, and they were able to get the double play, right? And he dropped it.
Was literally it was a fungoed ground ball. It was as crystal clear of a tailor-made double play ball you can have. I'm going to say this about Volpe. And I've been on record saying that I think Volpe is a very, very good defender. And I don't know if I want to just chalk it up to saying I'm going to retract that statement, but I want to bring up something that seems important, because Anthony Volpe is a 235 hitter, right? And you bring up the ops, right? And you bring up some of the analytics, and people bring up the slugging. And they say, well, his bat's a lot better than what people give him credit for. And to which I say, Anthony Volpe, the analytics say he's actually not that fast. So the idea that we thought Volpe, and we're just talking about the offense here, was this guy who you could slot the top of the lineup. He can go steal you 40 bags. And then the gloves there, that's what we love about him. That's what's going to make him so valuable. And then you look up and you see Volpe's hitting 235. His ops is 26 points above league average at 726. And Anthony Volpe fields, and he can make the spectacular play. I don't think anyone should question that. But a lot of time when people bring up a player's ability to be clutch, right? Making the play you really have to make in a game or in a series. And that usually has a lot to do with the bat. But when do we start talking about clutch ability with the glove, with the arm, in the field? And it seems like Anthony Volpe, the mistakes that he does make, and I know, Jake, you mentioned to me before we went live his errors that he's made, and Michael Kay alluded to that as well. I really question the timing of when Anthony Volpe tends to disappear defensively, right? His strength. And it seems to be in the biggest moments. Anthony Volpe, when it doesn't matter at all, the team's winning, others are hitting, he makes all the plays. It's not a problem. He's a vacuum over there. But when the team's struggling, no one's scoring, game's 2-1, 1-1, you need to preserve a 3-0 lead and maybe win a big game, he's nowhere to be found defensively. And you mentioned that he's overrated defensively. I think most people, when they say someone's a great defender, they just kind of presume that there's going to be a consistent baseline to the output. And there is not with this player. In big games defensively, he's not good. In games we don't care about to win because we've been winning games, he's fine. So what to think about Anthony Volpe? He's not going to help us stop this bleeding. Matter of fact, he's going to help it bleed. It's unfortunate. It is what it is.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. By the way, I'm a big believer in holding people accountable and going back and being like, okay, well, what do you think about this guy? See, here's the thing. Volpe has the third worst fielding percentage among all shortstops in the league right now, currently. Did you know that fielding percentage is actually lower than at any point IKF was playing short for the Yankees?
And everyone
wanted
IKF.
to kill him.
Yeah.
They wanted to kill him. They grilled him. Literally every time IKF made an error, you would never stop hearing about. But Volpe, it doesn't seem to be talked about nearly as much.
What was his primary position, by the way? Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Where did he win his Gold Glove with Texas? Oh, third base. That's right. Yeah. I digress. Go ahead, partner.
Like literally the opposite of A-Rod coming from Texas.
Isn't it amazing how we moved a player who won a Gold Glove? We called him a stopgap shortstop because our hero was showing up, right? Mm-hmm. He's this kid. If you pick on him, if you criticize him in any way, if you give him any constructive criticism, you're a hater. You hate him personally, right? So Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is brought to the team on a 1-year deal. He's poached from third base to shortstop, and he's not able to do it. We kind of chalk him up to being this, not even an overrated defender. We just called him bad, right? That's what we called him. He was bad at the position. All the while, we plucked him from another position and forced him to do this job. And yet, when you peel it back, he was comparable to what Anthony Volpe is giving us right now. It's disgusting. And I understand what's going to happen here. Volpe's going to give us some level of output at some point between now and the end of the season. And there's going to be a large group of Yankees fans who say, see, I never gave up on Volpe. I never gave up on him. Well, congratulations to you. This is unacceptable in moments where the Yankees needed to win this game. And people are going to say we didn't need to win the game. We had a division lead. You're riding a 5-game losing streak before we had lost this game. You have to make that play. Any shortstop that calls himself sure-handed, Jake, that's as tailor-made as they get. People don't boot that ball. And somehow, some way, a player as inconsistent offensively as Anthony Volpe, he's able to make that play that poorly and still find a way. He's going to play tomorrow. By the way, he will play tomorrow. So it's gross. I don't know what our audience thinks of it. I haven't even had a chance. I'm fuming. I'm literally so upset. I haven't even gotten a chance to take a look at the chat. I haven't.
Yeah. By the way, IKF is he has a higher fielding percentage this year, and he had one last year too. So at shortstop, mind you,
a higher fielding percentage than Anthony Volpe.
Yeah, he has 6 errors.
I hate when you give me great info like this.
974 fielding percentage, higher than Volpe. Volpe's in the 950s now.
Now, mind you, fielding percentage is a little misleading because sometimes guys don't get to balls because they don't have certain range. Like, we don't want to just make it black and white. No, fielding percentage makes you a better player or not. But I'll tell you this. More times than not, if you're going to complain about someone's defense, you should be complaining about the plays that just should be made, the plays that they get to. Do they make the routine plays in clutch situations, right? Man on third, they're offensively situations you expect them to drive in runs. Do they drive those guys in? That should be how you judge these players, not the heroic plays, not the jump throws, the diving plays. We're not going to complain if Volpe doesn't make a diving play or he doesn't hose somebody on a double cut to third. No, this was, as you put it, Jake, this is some of the most basic ground balls. You mentioned that you were worried a ball wouldn't be hit hard enough for a double play. It was practically
and then he got a perfect.
It was rolled out there. It couldn't have been rolled out there better.
The velocity was literally perfect. It's funny. What I was thinking, and I'm sure you kind of know where I'm going with this, is that when you have Tim Hill, he's supposed to deliver you soft contact, right?
Yes.
And I've been saying he's only delivering you hard contact. So in that moment, all you want is hard enough contact to turn a double play. If you generate soft contact, you're not going to get the guy who's just sprinting down first base. That is a run, okay? Let me make that very clear. The guy who's running to first knows that if he gets to first, it's a run. Simply put. So you have to break up the double play. So it's going to be tough. But that was hit perfectly fine. and Volpe just boots it. And not only did he not get the double play, did he even get an out? I don't think so. I think he threw it over. He threw it over Peraza's head. So, yeah, I'm really tired of this stuff. But one thing I will not do is sit here and blame the whole game on Volpe. Aaron Judge is 2 for his last 27. Trent Grisham, the bunting. Let's go to that. Let's talk about that. Let's isolate that, because that, to me, in that situation, I broke it down to you. I texted you immediately, and I was just like, dude, Trent Grisham is up 2-1 in the count, and they're like, swing away. No. Nothing changes. You need to bunt the runner over. It's that simple. Because if you manage to do that, guess what happens? Yes, you're out. You have 1 out. Aaron Judge is coming up to the plate. Ron Washington was not letting him hit in that situation. He would have walked Judge. Then it's bases loaded, right? So now it's bases loaded for Cody Bellinger. And if you're going to say, well, he popped out to the third baseman, completely different approach. If it's bases loaded, you get a completely different approach at the plate from Cody Bellinger, different swing, just everything is different. So that, I said right then and there, they lost the game on that. I knew they were not winning when I saw that. I just don't know.
Because I saw, I feel like I saw 10 different plays.
Yeah,
where
but that
at one
was
point
the
broadcast
last play.
Yes, I feel like the broadcast also talked about Goldschmidt's monstrous jump from first base to second. And mind you guys, mistakes, especially mental mistakes, they happen all the time. You play 162 regular season baseball games, mental errors are bound to happen. But what's so hilarious to me, this is exactly the problem I alluded to 3 days ago. Most people who listen to our podcast, they listen on a daily basis. 3 days ago, you guys can easily go find it yourselves. I mentioned, why are we swinging when someone has a monster jump off of second base going into third? And then people complained about the bad luck of hitting the ball directly to the third baseman, right? We mentioned that. And yet, people said, well, it was just one mental mistake. We don't want to grill him. We don't want to blame the game on him. Okay. Then you fast forward to today. Paul Goldschmidt has the most monster jump you've ever seen in your whole life. He's going to go in standing up, and that's saying quite a bit. Paul Goldschmidt's not Ricky Henderson. He needs a real jump for the broadcast to commit to describing it as, oh, he was just going in standing up. It was a formality of him going to second. And yet, Jazz Chisholm decides, I'm swinging at this pitch. Who is honestly discussing the fundamentals of baseball with this group? Who? These are good players. I know it's easy to pick on Volpe and what he does with physical, right? Jazz Chisholm, what he does in the first month of the season, the physical stuff. Where's the mental side of baseball? I hear all day long about baseball IQ, what certain players are going to be doing, right? There are 9 guys playing every day. And when you bring guys in off the bench, there are a ton of guys who have an impact on the game. It's never on one player. But why is everyone playing stupid baseball? This is dumb. We are making dumb decisions. You foul off one pitch, you're like, oh, the bunt's off.
It's
right?
insane.
And so you mentioned these are key situations. You called it the biggest mistake of the game. And I don't blame you. You certainly can have that take. I probably would join you in on that. But Jake, there's like 12 different plays every single night where you say, well, why did they choose to go about it that way? Rather than just chalking it up to the players getting a hit, driving in a runner with runners in scoring position, right? Hitting home runs. Why don't they just make the correct choices of what to try to do? They're just playing hero ball. And I'm here to tell you right now, we don't have enough great players to play hero baseball. We've got to play smart if we want to win.
Well, I have a few things I want to say. One, they're playing like how everyone expected them to play that wasn't a Yankee fan. Like, oh, Juan Soto's not there. This team is looking like a team that is missing Juan Soto right now, right? Just that presence. That's what they're playing into, that narrative that we heard all off season. And they were showing people up until that, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, hey, you like Trent Grisham? You like all your buddies? You feel good about this locker room? Yeah. You know who doesn't care? Brian Cashman. Brian Cashman will send away one of these players and not bat an eye. Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone are not connected. I have said this over and over again. You know that. Aaron Boone deals with who is on the roster, but if Cashman, and obviously Boone might agree on a move that Cashman made, but if Cashman, and I sent it to you, I didn't love his response, but just because he responded in that way, kind of like, oh yeah, the storm will pass, or hopefully it'll pass, doesn't mean he isn't sitting there thinking, maybe we need to go out and get somebody. And to me, this is where, the idea of breaking up a locker room when you're succeeding seems tough, right? Remember I kept bringing that up it's hard to trade away a Jason Dominguez if everybody's all tight-knit and they're winning. But when you're losing, all bets are off. And that's the thing. So if they want to, protect that locker room, they want to protect the clubhouse, they want to have the same roster going into the postseason, they got to start winning. They need to get out of this hump.
What did I tell you, by the way, when you mentioned that? Because, mind you, that's fair, especially for a group who's won a World Series championship, and the Yankees haven't done that, so let's be perfectly clear. But when you mention the idea of mixing up the locker room, right? We heard this about DJ LeMahieu, other players that have been on this roster, and people are questioning, why is that guy on the roster, right? Fill in the blank, whoever that person is. And then we get the answer, oh, well, it would mix up the locker room. Players like him, right? Judge likes him. This guy likes him. What have you guys done to dictate this lineup, this roster? What have you guys done?
That's what I'm saying.
Nothing. And even while you were winning regular season baseball games, that's not the task. The job is to win the World Series. If you had won a championship in 2024, and then we punt into 2025 and we say, well, this guy's not really producing, and then you hear that World Series champions, right, guys that are part of that group to get us over the hump, they don't want you to get rid of this guy. I think maybe then you can give them some type of pull. But right now, I don't see it. I feel if you're not a part of the ultimate solution, you don't have any say. So no one should be off of the trade block or on it per se, based on what the players think, because nobody, and I mean nobody, that sits in our locker room right now has been part of a single solution. And I know that you can play MVP style baseball, you can do all of that. But when it matters most in October, no one in this group has gotten it done. Outside of Cody Bellinger, right? And this is years ago now. And by the way, I do have some quotes from Anthony Volpe. I thought these quotes were good before we get to some super chats. You guys have been awesome. We're not ignoring you. We just want to hone in on the topic at hand right now before we jump elsewhere. But Anthony Volpe, again, I thought this was good on the error in the 8th inning, says right off the bat, I've got to be aggressive, go get the ball, and make the play. As far as that's all it is. It's the first read off the bat. So yeah, it seems like he's taking accountability, and he also says, I know I can do better. Everyone holds themselves to a really high standards. I personally don't see that. And we know we're not getting the job done. So I like the idea that he's mentioning. The group seems to understand this is not acceptable. But the question is what has changed from today, the game you guys watched today? And Jake, I would love for you to help explain it to me. What was different between Wednesday's debacle against the Angels and the finale against Boston? Was there any difference of baseball, or was it just a different team on a different day? It seemed identical to me.
This is the same exact team as the team that we've seen the other 5 losses. The only difference is tonight, the climate was a little bit more in favor of the hitter. And so that was just enough to get Cody Bellinger's ball out. And I'm sorry, Kohanowitz threw the most beach ball pitch I've ever seen in my life. And Jazz
Michael K got to talk about Joe Adell hitting the ball 500 feet.
Oh, yeah.
You saw that? That was pretty funny.
Every time he brings it up, man. That's actually been the highlight of the entire series. This series has been pretty much unwatchable. And every time Joe Adell comes up, I just can't wait to hear Michael K, because he's always like, yeah, he just has not lived up to expectations every time he comes up to the plate. It's the funniest thing I've ever heard.
It still didn't seem very... Well, first of all, he did mention how many home runs he'd hit in a certain amount of games, which was awesome. I mean, clearly, this is the first season where he's showing what he can do physically.
Of course.
But just having listened to it, it's clear as day, even while something good's happening, Michael K still expresses that, yeah, this isn't how it's always been. So interesting, right?
It is
And Mark, with the 5, with the super, Mark, we really appreciate it. Thank you. Says, the Rockies are currently a better offensive team than the Yankees. And it's not even a crazy take. Amazing times in the Bronx. And by the way, I want to kind of retract in make it a part of this super chat. When you mentioned Brian Cashman, he said that this was a storm. It almost makes it, and maybe I could be wrong. Maybe I could be reading into this far too much, and we can listen to what the chat has to say about it. And maybe you too, Jake, is that it seems like this is out of our control. Like this is just part of the ugliness of baseball.
I think it's just
There's
a figure of
storm,
speech.
right? It could be a figure of speech, but also at what point do they actually address what the problem is? Do they think this is just random and everyone's slumping at the same time? What do the Yankees think is the problem right now?
Can I defend Brian Cashman here?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so hear me out when I say this. I don't think Brian Cashman is trying to lean any sort of way. Being a general manager is tough. It's why, like, anytime, I watch general managers, Howie Roseman, Les Snead, somebody like that goes on a podcast, what can they say? Quite literally, you are setting yourself up for failure if you divulge any trade secrets. If you're like, yeah, we typically look at this archetype of player, or yeah, we're not really a big fan of this, or oh, we like this. It's just going to hurt you down the road. There's going to be a trade you lose. There's going to be a guy that you lose in free agency. That's just the reality of it, right? So I've actually come to grips with the fact that Brian Cashman is going to have the most NPC quotes you've ever seen, because if he dare say anything along the lines that is hinting towards trading a Jason Dominguez, right, it hurts Jason Dominguez's value.
What about talking about players who aren't due up for a contract anytime soon? He had no problem coming out for Giancarlo Stanton. Well, he comes out to Giancarlo Stanton and he says, well, Giancarlo's going to get hurt, so we're probably going to have to find guys.
Well, that was terrible.
Well, so you can call it terrible, but when you say he's going to give us these NPC answers, I hear what you're saying, and I sort of agree with you.
Like,
but
during
having
the
said
season more so, though.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, because the trade deadline
he easily could have told us something
away.
NPC with Giancarlo Stanton. He chose not to. He actually chose to take a shot at him. And Giancarlo actually is kind of letting it go. He has. Yeah. And he didn't have to. So I understand what you're saying is part of his job is damage control. He comes in, things are bad. He can't make a trade right now. I mean, technically you can. You saw Devers get traded to the Giants. Mm-hmm. But I guess him coming out and saying, yeah, Anthony Volpe is just not panning out the way that we wanted him to defensively, whatever it is. Yeah, he doesn't have to come out and say that. He shouldn't say that. Because,
no, but not even just a player, Gary. If he were to come out and say, yeah, if he admits, oh, yeah, the offense just isn't hitting well who the hell is going to trade for any of these guys? I don't want anything to do with that team right now. I don't want anything to do with them.
Oh, I don't think that changes their value at all. For me personally, I don't think Brian Cashman's opinion on how certain guys are playing. Like, if you look at Aaron Judge right now, Boone just got up on the mic and they're like, hey, Judge is 2 for his last 27. And if he came out and was like, yeah, that's pretty bad, it's not going to change your value in any way. Like, these GMs aren't listening. These GMs aren't listening to what Brian Cashman has to say to dictate trades. Like,
it's more so optics, though, because you don't want to start being like, what you definitely don't want to do, and this is why normally the stuff doesn't get leaked, is you're not trying to tell the entire league what you're missing.
They told us they're missing pitching.
No, they said that they want to add pitching, not that they're missing pitching. There's a difference.
Sounds a lot like that to me.
Well, think about this. If you feel good about your 9, right? You feel good about your rotation, and you just say, yeah, I'd like to add another guy to the mix. That doesn't come off as you'd like to replace anybody. It just comes off like you want another body, right?
I mean, I would agree.
So that's how I see it.
Based on the quote of what he said, he literally said, they're like, hey, so what is it going to be? Are you looking at third base? What about second? What about starters or some guys in the back end of the bullpen, Devin Williams, all that stuff? And he goes, pitching. Which leads me to believe,
but I mean,
Brian Cashman's not satisfied with what they have on the mound, even though they're getting an output. So I understand what you're saying. Brian Cashman's probably not the guy we should be looking at as far as leadership goes. The person who should be giving us real answers are the players. The players, and you saw it today from Anthony Volpe. He was like, I was basically, I'll paraphrase it for you guys, I was garbage today. I was horrible. That's what he said. But I don't know if I'm really that concerned with what guys say. I'm far more concerned with what they do next. 5 days ago, you played pathetic baseball, and everyone said it's just one game. It's just one game. Let's flush it. I agreed. Let's flush that. We wet the sheets against Boston. Let's get them tomorrow. Don't love the matchup. We show up to the field. We made the same mistakes. And then we continue down the road a week later, and they're making the same mistakes and hopping on the mic saying, I'm better than that. I can be sharper than that. I need to know the outs. I need to know the strikes. And they continuously don't. And so now I beg to question, are you really being real with me? Is anyone afraid to lose their job here with the Yankees? It doesn't feel like that as a player or manager.
No, I agree with that. I actually want to bring something up here.
Go ahead.
So, you know the Lakers won the bubble championship in 2020?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know where I'm going with this if I just brought up a championship. The Lakers, the ownership just sold the Lakers. And I'm wondering how long, like for real, like, you know, dealing with all these boundaries that was never the case with George Steinbrenner. How long would Hal go about owning this team? That was the first thought I had today. It wasn't even, I'm a Laker fan. It wasn't even about the Lakers. The first thought I had is, wow, the Lakers won a championship in 2020 and they just sold their team. That
I would probably
ownership
say
just
forever. I don't even think Hal would ever consider selling the Yankees until he scratched his itch of winning a title and becoming, right, like, and getting over the hump in that degree. Because right now, people sort of look at, and you try to paint the reason, like, why haven't the Yankees won a title? And people say it starts all the way up top. I've heard that a lot. They'll say, well, the ownership, right? If you look at it, people who blame Aaron Boone, and if you want to do that, you certainly can do that. I have no problem with it. But who hires him? Who gives him, right, the ammunition to go out there and manage his, you know, whatever type of way, say what he says in the media, you know, win all the games he's won. He still won a lot of games, but who says that he's doing a good enough job to stay? The owners. The ownership does. And so when you look up and you say, Hal doesn't want to win. Hal doesn't want to, we heard it in a couple of supers yesterday. He doesn't want to break the bank. Hal wants to win just as bad as anyone else does as far as Yankee people go. But he probably wants to prove he can do it his way, right? So I don't think until he gets it done, whenever that may be, I don't know when it's going to happen, but until that happens, I don't think he'll be satisfied enough to let go of the rope. I don't think it's happening. So I like that you brought it up, but at the same time, what that Laker leadership did, and they having just won just 5 years ago, that's part of the reason why you can say, okay, I've scratched that itch. I can do it. Now I'm going to give up this team.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, I think, you know, Buss and George Steinbrenner are very similar in a lot of ways. Buss was one of those guys. I mean, all he wanted to do was win. And, you know, I think Steinbrenner was a little bit more hardcore, but they both were kind of the same and they both built something. And I guess we have these conversations off air all the time about generational wealth. And I understand passing on to your kids, but man, like the idea, I don't know, the idea that you look at it is just like passing it down as a family business, but you don't put like your all into it, because we do see that with ownerships. That's where I have an issue with. Like, if you're the stereotypical trust fund kid like Jim Buss, I watched the Lakers, you know, I watch him now, I watched him back then, I watched him with Jim Buss. Jim Buss had no idea what he was doing. None. It was like, oh, you want to talk about Playboy? By all means, Jim Buss is all over that. But Jim Buss did not know anything. He wanted just big names, and he didn't care how to get them. And you could just tell he had no idea what he was doing, and it hurt the team. It hurt their morale. They traded away players that they shouldn't have traded. Then when a certain veto of a trade happened, the chemistry was gone. I don't want that to be the case. If Hal passes it down, I hope to God he has somebody that actually is going to take care of it, right?
Well, Hal doesn't need to know what he's doing. Hal could literally be just some jabroni that floats out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. He doesn't need to know anything. All that matters is that he's hands off, and the people that you trust to make decisions make the right decisions, hold people accountable.
Oh, well, I agree with that.
His like number one job is to be able to assess the damage. Is this the right person to run this company, right? Because that's what this is. This is a company. The Yankees need to be able to hold players accountable when they don't play well, When young players and we all commit to developing them, and like Jason Dominguez, okay, he's a young guy we want to develop. Awesome. So what are you going to do about it? Oh, well, I have this guy who's going to manage the team. Oh, but I really like Trent Grisham over here. So he's going to play often over the player that we just told you guys we want to develop desperately as our number one prospect. Oh, well, how does that make any sense? It doesn't. It doesn't make sense. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. You see it with Jerry Jones. Obviously, Jake, you're a big football guy, and he's hands-on. He's getting involved in trades. He's getting involved in the draft. Get the hell out of the way. So when I look at Hal, I don't look at it and say, well, when's he going to sell the team? All I ask, when are you going to hold people accountable when they fail you? So has he done that yet? I've hardly seen it. So I look down the line and I just see a bunch of people, and you see this super chat from Alex Reyes with a 10. Alex, we greatly appreciate it. I know Jake and I both do. Says, remember Girardi, the guy with abysmal lineups who kept winning, the one who managed to take a rebuilding team in 2017 to a Game 7 in the championship series, and I believe that obviously was with Houston, the one who was let go for holding players accountable. I want him. So, Jake, before I punt it over to you, just 15 seconds here, I feel like when you have an old school manager, these slides don't tend to happen as often because the close games, players tend to be more accountable. They tend not to make as many mental mistakes. Do you think that these mental mistakes are solely on Boone, or do you put a lot of this on the players just not knowing what to do themselves?
It sucks because, I mean, you kind of have to say Boone has something to do with it. But I mean, like, you look at Dave Roberts as a player's coach, and the Dodgers don't deal with this. So I don't know. It's interesting. I don't think it's something we'll ever know the true answer to. I really don't. We'll have an idea, but we'll never know for sure. It's hard to know. I mean, like, it's just weird watching today's game, and just you see it's like only Jazz Chisholm and Cody Bellinger looked like they could even hit today. Everyone else just looked lost.
How many hits did we have, by the way? Now that
from those two.
We had 3 hits total?
From those two, yes. They were actually worse than the night before, believe it or not.
Cody had 2 of them?
Yep.
So Jazz Chisholm hit the bomb. Cody hit a bomb.
Correct.
It's unbelievable because when the broadcast, and you talked about this, I don't want to steal your thunder. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the fact that some of these arms that are coming in for both Boston and Anaheim, the broadcast job is to tee up the audience, right? The viewer. What is this guy good at? What's he bad at, right? What's the umpire bad at, right? We do the pitch. Is it heavily towards the pitcher? Is it heavily towards the hitter? Also that we can build an understanding of what to expect. That's all it is. And what's so ironic is every single time they talk about the scouting report in the first inning, it feels like, oh yeah, okay, he likes to go to the sinker, the cutter, and you're like, okay, that's what he likes to do. Sure enough, like 4 or 5 innings later, that scouting report is exactly what beats the Yankees. Exactly what the broadcast tells you the player's going to try to do. He's going to try to work up in the zone, and he's going to try to work a curveball and bounce it off of that. What do you see? You see players swinging at pitches at their head and then waving at pitches in the dirt. You're sitting there thinking to yourself, did you guys just burn the scouting report? Like, are you guys not looking at... Did you watch
anything on this guy?
Yeah, and I don't want to overly simplify baseball. Baseball is the hardest sport to play arguably in the world. It is to hit. But you're paid a lot of money to assess what someone's trying to do to you.
Career high strikeouts. A guy with over a 5 ERA.
Just try to stop what he's trying to do to you. That's what you do. So the Yankees just are letting people play to their strengths, and it's killing them right now. You know what They're making no adjustments. Right now? What?
The Yankees are literally turning these random, like, jabronis, as you would call them, on the Angels into, like, some serious, like, somebody's actually going to trade for, like, Kahanowitz at the deadline.
Do you know what his ERA is without looking? I'm sure you've already looked at it 10 times.
Is it 5.26?
It is 5.38 after today's performance.
After, yes. And today was really good, to be fair.
Which tells you that the average team that he faces, they just have their way.
5 runs.
They have their way. They score runs, and it's not always the Yankees, Dodgers, and Mets. A lot of times that he pitches, it's literally against the Marlins. They're playing random teams in baseball. They're playing the Reds. It doesn't matter. So they come into Yankee Stadium and they just take care of business. So it's disgusting. Kyle with the 2. Thank you so much, Kyle. Welcome back. Says get Volpe off this team. Obviously not very happy with that late game error. Pitching, not a problem. Jake, you agree with that?
Yeah, pitching's not a problem at all. I don't agree with getting Volpe off the team. I mean, he's still worthy of being on the team. He's still worthy of being the starter. The shortstops in the league are not very good, and he's batting, 7th or 8th? So it is what it is. I personally am not the biggest fan of Volpe. Not that I'm rooting against him, but I'm a big believer in, what have you done for me lately? Volpe, the last time I really felt really good about him was the home run he hit in the World Series. Since then, I haven't really thought too much about Volpe. All I've felt is that he is an underachiever. That's what I felt. And does that mean, when I say that, does that mean I think he doesn't work hard? No. But results speak for themselves. I'm going to say this right now. I've been a fan of his. I wanted him to do well. I'm officially throwing in the towel for Oswald Peraza. He's a nothing burger at the plate. I don't know what happened 2022. I think they ruined him, to be honest with you. But in 2022, he showed you 832 OPS, hitting 306 in 18 games. He showed you something. Well, that's gone. And this is, by the way, what happens when you coddle your prospects and you keep them in AAA forever. And it's not that I'm making excuses for the 25-year-old, but I'll tell you right now, I'm definitely out on Peraza. I don't think he's ever going to be a starter. I think he's probably a backup, and right now, he is one move away from not being on this team, and it wouldn't be the worst thing. And look, I love his defense. I do. And I like how hard he hits the ball. But he's just not a good hitter, not at the MLB level. And you can't just tell me, because I'm a big fan of actually holding these players accountable, whether I'm a fan of theirs or not. You can't just tell me, yeah, you can send him to AAA and he'll figure it out. No, you can't. He's 25. Like, he's been in AAA. They
also said the jump. I don't know if you've heard the broadcast. Certainly you have, actually. Mm-hmm. They always mention, they said the jump from AAA to the big leagues is bigger and the wider of a gap today than it's ever been. Ever. So for those of you who like to look back in history, and I love to look at the stats, I love to look at what a dude did in 2011 in AAA and say, oh, well, he hit 280 in AAA, and then all of a sudden he was able to hit 295 the following year in the big leagues because those leagues were comparable. They were actually somewhat close. And now you'll see guys who will go out there and hit 320, and the Yankees just never call them up from AAA. They just don't do it. So it just seems like AAA numbers are somewhat of just like exhibition games where you kind of look at mechanics and you look at tools and stuff like that and make decisions. And I can't even say, by the way, and this is just my conclusion, when you mention Peraza and just sort of that you don't necessarily see starter potential at any point, and maybe it could be the fact that he hasn't played, but I'm actually going to defend the Yankees here somewhat, and not in a good way. So I don't want people to clutch their pearls. I'm not actually defending them. It's really in a backhanded way. I just don't think the Yankees prospects are really that good. That's what I think. And I'll tell you why. The Yankees have had prospects that they just refuse to call up, and people say, why are you yo-yoing them back from AAA to AA to the major leagues? Then they don't play every day. Then they've had guys that they just play every day, and they refuse to take them out of the lineup. Anthony Volpe clearly being one of them. Now, mind you, I still think Volpe is a good enough player to start. Actually, I tweeted like 2 weeks ago and said he's a lot better than what people think, but given where he's at and all the expectations, he's not good in comparison to the expectations of what people have. So you look at Volpe, he's had an unlimited leash to play. It didn't work. Then you look at Dominguez. They bring him up. He was actually a higher prospect, number one prospect for the Yankees. And you say, oh, what's he going to do? They don't want to play him every day. They now have him on a timeshare with Trent Grisham. So you look up, the Yankees don't know who they want to play, who they want to develop and play every day, who they want to sit, send down. They don't know. It just seems like certain guys are favorites and certain guys aren't, and we don't know why that is. So I don't want to say get Volpe off this team. I've mentioned I think he's a good enough player to play, but you're going to have certain guys that we tend to take out our frustrations on, and he's one of those guys. You're the shortstop of the Yankees. You make a big error late in the game. What do you think people are going to say? Of course they are. That's going to be their takeaway.
I like what you said. I do disagree to an extent.
About what?
And the reason why is because when I look at, say, and this is kind of how I see it. Remember when I told you I was reading that article and how they feel like the Yankees, like around the league, there's this assumption the Yankees have figured it out, and the farm system, they've changed a lot of what they used to value. Peraza is one of those guys from the used to value, right? Jason Dominguez is one of the guys from that used to value. So I feel like the new guys, like Lombard Jr., Rock Reggio, who this dude just hits a home run literally every day, it feels like. I feel like they're a good batch of players. I'm excited about Cunningham. I'm excited about LaGrange. I think they actually have a really good farm system. And I think it's become a little underrated because of this kind of narrative. That's not just you. I started to believe this as well, but I've been following, as you know, I've been following hard on the AAA, the AA. My biggest takeaway is that there are guys in AA right now for the Yankees that they can make every excuse in the book. They should be up in AAA. I mean, Spencer Jones is hitting the crap out of the ball. He almost has 1,000 OPS right now. I think he's the league leader.
That's
in
all
home
great,
runs.
but it's like at the same time, there's a difference between producing in AA and having a bid to go to AAA. Prospects still aren't good at baseball until they get called up to the big leagues.
But when
you get called up to the big leagues and you perform, Anthony Volpe, I heard this all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Sanchez, right? Clint Frazier, all these different guys, they're buns. And Gary, your assessment is so right. I'm not talking you. I'm talking about random people in the Yankees, not in their front office, just people around. Gary, you're right. Gary Sanchez is not it. This guy's not it. But I'll tell you what, this kid down here that I'm watching, Anthony Volpe, and again, he doesn't suck. He doesn't. He just doesn't. But I heard all day long, these guys aren't hype. They are going to give you what you're looking for. I said, okay. I'm not going to sit up and stare at what guys are doing in AA. I'm not going to be looking at the stats every single day of what guys are doing in AAA, because I've also seen guys hit 310 for the Yankees in AAA and they don't call them up, and that's recent. And then all of a sudden they bring them up here, they hit 165, and they tell me, well, it was probably because of this, and then look behind you because there's this other guy. So I hear you. The numbers are what they are. Balls are leaving the stadium. When you text me today and you told me what Rock Reggio was doing, and I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, it looks awesome. He's hitting home runs every day. He is. But he doesn't matter until he's here. So I try to get people to remember that and just understand that, because if your organization doesn't know what to do with guys who hit in AA and AAA, what does it matter what they do in AA and AAA? So I hope you're right, Jake. I don't want to sit up here and say that our minor league system sucks, but they haven't proven anything because they're hitting in AA and AAA. They haven't. I
just don't like the way they handled. I'm saying they call up the wrong guys. Like, I've been screaming from the rooftops about Winans, whose ERA is still, below 0.50. And it's like when you had those guys and now, of course, Tim Hill's starting to pitch better and Ian Hamilton, true. But it's like, I just don't understand. Like, Jesus Rodriguez. So this team's lost 6 straight. This guy's on the 40-man roster, and you can't give this guy one shot. See, that's where I have a disconnect
does he
with the
play?
Yankees. He could play third and he could play catcher.
So if he can play third and he can play catcher, right? Mm-hmm. You saw Austin Wells hitting about 200. You actually mentioned to me, I think you said his on-base percentage was what now?
Austin Wells?
Yeah, it wasn't. It was in the mid-200s, wasn't it? His on-base?
I mean, the last time I saw it was 279.
Atrocious.
It is just horrendous.
Atrocious. Absolutely horrible. You also mentioned that Rodriguez can play third base. Mm-hmm. Wasn't that the position that everybody in our chat was saying, hey, what are we going to do at third base? What are the Yankees going to... And we
so
also...
do you see why I've been saying this?
No, but this is the issue. If the Yankees are saying, what you guys are seeing at third or what you're seeing at second while Jazz is out, and we're just having to plug in like old vets or even like Pablo, we're just having to throw him over there. Mm-hmm. You don't trust this guy who's playing in the minor leagues. There has to be a reason why. There has to be. And so can I just chalk it up to those players like Rodriguez? They don't get called up now, but they'll get called up like next year in the middle of the year and then hit 179, and then I'm going to chalk it up to they misused them. Well, then if they misused them and they still are misusing players, how excited should I be about anybody? If I don't think you know how to drive the stick shift car, how exciting is it to buy a Porsche 911? It's not. You can't drive the damn thing. So just go sign veterans in free agency and be done with it.
But my biggest thing about Rodriguez is this isn't one of the AA guys I'm talking about. This is a AAA player who has consistently had an over 850 OPS in 1,226 at bats.
Yeah, it seems like he's earned the right to be up in the big league level.
Yeah, I just think that they get this stuff wrong, and I think they get it wrong quite often, to be honest with you. I do. I think they let guys kind of sit there. I think they got wrong the guys that they trade away to Boston. I mean, you see what they're doing. They get it wrong. They do. They're not perfect, and I feel like, unfortunately, these players take the brunt of it. And it's not just the Yankees. It's baseball. A lot of these organizations just because you have prospects, and yes, they are currency like we were talking about yesterday. And I do believe in using that currency to buy other, assets, right? I get that. But like, still to this day, like trading Narvaez was kind of dumb. It really was for a team that is win now. You're going to trade away a guy who's ready to go now for a guy who's never played in the big leagues before in JC Escara, like to move him up. And then you're trading him for a pitcher we're not going to see maybe ever, but we're not going to see for another 3 years because he's in like single A, right? Stupid, right? That seems a little weird. Then you trade away a Weissert and you trade away Whitlock. And I feel like, these are guys that are kicking your ass over on the Red Sox. And it's like, yeah, there are some guys out there that they've moved on from, maybe a little too quickly. And, it's funny because Montgomery got hurt, but Montgomery, King, those are players that we're still being linked to this day. Like, oh yeah, like Michael King, get him in the offseason. Oh, Montgomery didn't get hurt. I have no question he would be a Yankee right now. No question.
So do you trust the Yankees today? So I don't want to talk about the past too much, right?
Yeah, of course.
I want to talk about the present and then the future. Do you trust them right now if they had a player who was earning a spot at the big league level from down below in AAA? We're not going to go to AA. We're going to go to AAA. If there was a player dominating in AAA, do you trust that they would make the correct decision?
No.
So if you said no, why should I trust that when Rock Reggio and Rodriguez is already there, Rock Reggio, Spencer Jones eventually will be in AAA soon enough, very soon. The question is, what does it matter what they do if we don't trust that they're going to call them up at the right time? So it means the only other thing you can do is call them up at what? The wrong time. So why would it work? That's where I'm at, is that I want to believe you guys have good prospects, that you guys have, and what you're saying when you have good prospects, you're saying they have good players down there. What I'm saying is two different arguments. It's that you have good players down there, but you don't know when and how to use them. So if you don't know when and how to use something, you might as well not even have it, really, unless you're going to cash it in for players you do know how to use. And I will say, I believe Brian Cashman knows how to trade for players he can use on his roster. I believe that. But do I believe that he can build and call people up from the minor league level and utilize them consistently for success? I don't believe that happens. So that's what I mean by saying they don't have a good minor league system. They don't know how to drive the car that's in their driveway.
No, it's frustrating because, like, again, I mentioned Winans, who's still pitching well. Really good example, okay? And this kind of goes to show you they chaotically use these players. Chaotically. There's no rhyme or reason. Clayton Beeter got the last 3 outs of the first game of the year last year. We never saw him again.
You know how excited I was about him. Never saw him.
And you had every reason to be. He had good stuff. We saw, the stuff that was being written about him. He had a good camp. And it's like, this is what I mean. This is why I understand what you're saying, but I think what I'm saying is different as well, because essentially I'm saying that they have the guys, and I'm not giving the Yankees credit for having the guys. Because think about this. If you have the best prospect in the league, and I'm not saying they do, but if they did, are you going to give them the credit for having the best prospect in the league? Say he's hitting 350, he's got 1,000 OPS, he's just killing it in AAA the whole year, and they don't call him up. That
didn't help the Yankees.
Anything.
Actually, technically, anyone in AA and AAA, no matter what they produce, doesn't help the big league roster even a smidgen until they either get called up or they get traded for a piece that they can use. That's the only way that you can actually get value out of the minor leagues. You either use them or you trade them. There's no other thing that you can do with these players. So I know that people think, okay, well, this guy's hitting 325 for us in AA. That legitimately means value for the Yankees. It only means value once you've traded it in and you've gotten your tokens for it. But the Yankees haven't done that yet. So I hope this works out. I do. I just haven't seen anything long-term to suggest that it will.
I give credit for calling up B-Boss, by the way, because that was kind of along the lines of what I'm saying is you want to give these guys opportunities.
And he got his shot, by the way. They let him play, and he was not good. So Navari with the super, with the 5, thank you for that. Said Volpe is atrocious. You could see a theme here. People are not happy with that defensive play. Not. He can make a play, yes, but when the big moments come, he cannot come through. So, yeah, this is along the lines of my conclusion. There's a difference between being a clutch player. People always chalk that up to offense, what you do with the bat. And I get it. That's the fun part of this game. But you also can be clutch defensively. We've seen Brandon Crawford do that for the Giants all those years. Clutch defense, being able to make the routine play. Can I trust you in the 9th inning of a World Series to field a ground ball and make a clean feed for a double play? Can I trust you to do that? It doesn't feel like we can do that right now. I want to catch up. Jeez, we are way behind on supers. Good Lord.
They're wow. It's loaded. Yankees unloaded. We're
with
loaded
some
with
new
chats.
names, by the way. Theo Harris with the 2. Thank you for that. He says, now I'm terrified. I'm going to pump the brakes here. I will. I'll do that. Yeah. I'm terrified of this becoming 2023. The only reason 2023 happened is because the Yankees sold us an offseason where we got swindled by the Twins and received Josh Donaldson in his age 37 season, where he was already bad the day he arrived. And we also lost Aaron Judge for half of a season. So if that happens and you lose Judge for half the year, you bring in a Lemon, right?
A Lemon. I love when you say that.
You're going to lose a lot of baseball games. I promise you, Theo. Again, thank you for the super chat. We greatly appreciate you supporting the channel. There is no way in hell this season turns into that. At worst, this team's winning like 85, 86 games. And that's like worst case scenario. I would say still, this Yankees team is going to turn it on. We just don't know when. They're going to say, they're going to gaslight you guys. They're going to say, see, you guys gave up on these boys. And here it is, July 20th, and we're on a 4-game win streak. Where are you guys now? And where we'll be is saying, well, why did that 8-game losing streak ever have to happen in the first place? Why did we have to play stupid baseball for 2 weeks? We're better than that. And that's what we're getting at. So, Theo, don't worry. Jake, what do you think about the idea of this becoming that dud of a 2023 season?
I'm going to start off by saying this, okay? When they say that, that is the dumbest shit you could possibly say. I feel like it's such a slap in the face of the fans. We're tuning into your boring games, okay?
Making you guys money.
Every single, we're paying money to go to games. We're sitting in rain. We are watching slop. Don't ever, do not ever throw the fans under the bus, because I'll tell you right now, Yankee fans don't tune out. They didn't tune out when Judge got hurt. They don't tune out now. So the idea is like, where were you guys? We were watching just shit baseball. That's where we were.
Podcasting an hour and a half to discuss why the team has
miss me with that. I hate that. I'm sorry. Man. I think, what was it? Alex Verdugo said that last year. He said something along those lines, and I was
what did he say?
I don't remember exactly what he said, but he's like, like they weren't with us, and now look at us now.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
And I'm just like, all right, you know what? Yeah.
There are a lot, by the way,
miss me with that.
A lot of I would say boomer Yankees fans, and those are
Yeah.
actually my favorite Yankees fans because they have some perspective of, right, what the Yankees used to be, like in the 70s, 80s, right? And then obviously they still were there for the 90s and early 2000s, so they know what great baseball looks like, they know what horrible baseball looks like, and they also know what mediocre ball looks like. And so it's great perspective, but there are a ton of boomers out there who are like, oh, you guys are spoiled. These are ups and downs of baseball, and it's just going to turn around. It's like, duh, we know the Yankees are going to start winning baseball games again, but do they have to lose to two mediocre baseball clubs in this fashion?
Exactly.
Like, how does this have to happen for
In a
you to just say it's
6-game
baseball?
losing streak? That's not. No. Let's not normalize that. That's not a thing. The Yankees don't do that. They don't have 6-game losing streaks. That's repulsive. And I'm sorry, but I'll speak for my mom on this one, who's probably either tuned in right now or she will be tomorrow. She literally got into the Yankees through our show. 100%. She did not watch the Yankees. The only game that she ever really watched was the game they came back and won. Stanton had the walk-off home run against the Pirates. And then after that, she started watching a little bit more, and then we got her in. Now she watches every night. My mom, as she put it, it's like a ritual. She watches the Yankees with my father, and I watch every game and you watch every game. So again, going back to that idea that we left your side because we criticized you is it's the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
What do they want us to do? Exactly. Do they want us to echo
Be
the
patient,
sentiments of
not
the
say
post game?
anything?
Just say, well, that's just baseball. Yeah, we had 3 hits today. Man, just can't get it tomorrow. Are we all supposed to in succession do that?
Yeah, it's short for fanatic too. So yeah, you are gonna get like bye Volpe, trade Volpe. Volpe knows that. I'm sure Volpe knows that right now. I'm sure he's well aware that, yeah, if I was ever gonna spend a night on social media, tonight would not be the night to do that.
And what did Jeter say, by the way, about booing? He said, yeah, I mean, we're playing a way to
Good, they
we
should
can get
boo
booed.
us.
They should be booing us.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, if we had the mentality of that these lulls just happen, this is just baseball, no one in the history of Yankees fans would ever boo. If we all thought this way, why would you boo? You just sort of know, okay, this great player, he can play unacceptable baseball for 3 weeks. Who gives a rat's behind? In 3 weeks, he'll be great again. So I'll just sit here with my popcorn and my overpriced chicken tenders, and then I'll just wait around for guys to start hitting and scoring again. But rather than that, let's be fair and assess what's actually happening, and that's what we do. And Chris Thoughts, love the name with the super chat with the 2. Thank you for that, Chris. We appreciate it. We're seeing a lot of new names.
I was
By
just
the way,
gonna
guys,
say, yeah.
if you guys are new, please make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you're notified when we go live. We go live after every single game. Jake and I, sometimes we don't want to go live. We do anyways. And this is one of those stretches it's tough. It's enjoyable once we do, because I think, Jake, before we went live, you said, this will be about 20 minutes. Let's just do this thing. And then
I did not say that. I said that the other day. I didn't say that today.
I'm not going to throw you under the bus. I say this all the time as well.
Yeah, I was
There's
like,
certain
let's
times
bang
where
this. Let's get this over with. Let's bang this thing out.
Right. So if you have
448 people later.
Right. You have 2 runs and 3 hits. You can't win a game. You can't score. You can't think out there. It's hard to think about talking about that team for an hour, but our audience is so good that obviously it tends to work out. Chris says, you guys are great therapy for me, but Volpe, yeah, see, Volpe just kind of understands.
The opposite of great therapy, I guess is what he's saying.
Yeah, I know. It's hard
Chris.
to watch. And Brian, here we go, a name I do recognize. Brian, thank you for the 10. As always, he says, let's be real here. Volpe is butt cheeks, covered by poop stained underwear. He's getting worse then better. Boone needs to be held accountable. Also, these yearly slumps are not acceptable. So short and sweet, this is what management's all about.
Like Volpe.
Quality managers, they can watch a player stray from his baseline, basic level of expectation of his talent, and get him back to equilibrium. That's what my personal opinion is of what a great manager does. He brings the best out of players, yes, occasionally. But more times than not, over the course of 162, he gets the baseline higher to where your expectations of what he does on a daily basis is just satisfactory. The Yankees can play great ball, and I would describe it, Brian, as great baseball for the first month and a half of the season. I was more than pleased, to be honest with you. I look at the standings, I look at the offense, a lot of rankings. We were better than a lot of people thought. And then all of a sudden, the baseline just dropped off a cliff, and no one seems to give a rip other than a couple of players holding themselves accountable. So yeah, Brian, I understand the frustration, obviously, with Volpe and holding players accountable. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely understand. And look, I think of it in terms of this, because I still think it does fall on the grown men that are playing a kid's sport for a living. But at the same time, patterns are real. And you go back to the Cincinnati Bengals years ago. They had a coach by the name of Marvin Lewis. Do you remember that?
Oh, God, yes.
They could not. It didn't matter how much they won, Gary. They could not win a playoff game. It was like over 10 years of not winning a playoff game. They finally fired him because they're like, look, yeah, you win. You're consistent. But you can't get us over the hump of even winning one playoff game.
There'd be like a personal foul in the fourth quarter of a playoff game.
I did feel bad for him. He seemed like, first off, he seemed like a nice guy. But second,
because he was the coach, right? When Vontaze Burfict was like going head to head with dudes. Yeah. So there you have it. They just played stupid football. And it goes to show you, I'm so glad you brought up this coach because certain people in winning time, and I hate to do this, I hate to do it. But people despise watching the Kansas City Chiefs. They do. But a lot of times, teams like the Patriots, teams like the Chiefs, part of the reason why they kind of get over the hump, some people will say it's calls, but also you have to give them credit where it's due. They don't do the stupid thing when it matters. That's the difference. So I'm glad you brought up a coach that would not bring the best out of his players. And I don't want to just make Boone seem like a buffoon, because he's not. But he does have to hold these players to a much higher standard, and he has to do it more in just being rugged to the managers. He has to do that to his players as well, and not just be so nice.
You know what I would kind of liken it to? It's almost like I watched JJ Redick do this in the playoffs. A team gets on a run. And your first thought would be like, oh, okay, just call a timeout, end the run. And it's almost like, no, I'm not going to call a timeout because I believe in my players. Well, now it's time not to believe in your players. Now it's time to step in and call that timeout. Be like, all right, this shit is not going to fly with me.
Did you hear what Boone said this morning about the players-only meeting that apparently didn't exist? He said, they said, oh, was there a players-only meeting? And he was like, no, there wasn't, right?
And then Bellinger, I guess, just like was yelling or something, or was frustrated.
Yeah, which is fine. I have no problem with that. Frustration is good because it means that you expect something different to be happening. But having said that, I wouldn't have a problem with a players-only meeting. I wouldn't have a problem with Boone sitting down and having a meeting. We need to talk to each other. We need to communicate. Rather than pointing fingers at one another, at some point or another, we have to... And I hate to bring it back up of holding players accountable. We need to be honest with each other. We need to be able to be honest with somebody and say, that's not just a cold streak. That's a week of stupid baseball. That's a week of not thinking. That's a week of not knowing the outs, not knowing the strikes, not knowing that we should clearly bunt here, not knowing when to go to the next base or not, right? Those type of things, it's healthy to look someone in their face and say, we're not doing that again. We're not doing that again. And if it does happen again, understand we will put someone in there that will do it. And I think if the players felt, honestly, like Aaron Boone would make that decision, we maybe would see different results. And this super chat that you threw up on the screen, Jake, is perfect because
it
sugar, honey,
iced tea coincides with what we were saying.
Right, with the two. And thank you for that. I hesitate to call you sugar, honey, iced tea, but we had the same losing streak with Soto last year. And I don't remember if it was 6 games or longer or what it was, but I do remember a losing streak. And it kind of goes to show you guys, this isn't necessarily just about the players and the talent. This is about leadership and where that comes from. So, yeah, what do you think about that? Because obviously people thought we were way better at the time and in better hands with Juan Soto in our lineup, and yet you can still find your way having cold streaks. What'd you think?
They had a 4-game losing streak in the end of June, and then they had a 4-game losing streak at the beginning of July. I don't know if they had 6, and that's what I mean. Like, this is
4
ridiculous.
is not terrible.
No, they never had a 6-game lose. This is like, I don't want to have to go all the way back. I mean, if Gary wanted to keep talking, I could look it up, but it's just not. I don't care enough. This shouldn't even be a thing. 6-game losing streak is repulsive. It is unacceptable. We were just talking about how this team had not lost a series until the Red Sox series, and now they've lost 2 straight, and they're looking at getting swept 7 games in a row, not winning. I mean, this is a 4-game set. And by the way, this is the rubber match. This is game 7 of the series for the entire year. Like, because they swept the Angels. They could actually lose this series after sweeping the Angels earlier in the year.
Who do we play next, by the way?
The Reds.
So let me ask you this.
That's going to be an interesting
Considering this is happening, if we got swept by the Angels, which I don't anticipate it happening, but at this point, there's no way to predict anything else. If we got swept by the Angels, and then we went into Cincinnati.
Baltimore.
That's right. We do play Baltimore.
And then they go to Cincinnati.
Right. So let's just stop it at Baltimore. What if we get swept by the Angels and then you go into Baltimore and you lose game 1? What are fans saying then? What are people saying then? What does the accountability look like at that point? That's my question, is why hasn't this stopped? Is it just baseball? The manager seems to think so. He seems to think this is just comes with the territory of the
baseball,
sport.
Though.
That's what they tell us.
It's not. I mean, you had what, 2 3-game losing streaks. You lost to the Pirates in 11, and then Detroit just cleaned your clock in those 2 games. And then you had the 3-game losing streak to Tampa, and then you lost a close one to San Diego, and then won the next 2. Okay, that's it. Those are the only 3-game losing streaks they've had this year. They actually have had some decent streaks. I mean, they have like multiple 5-game winning streaks. So, no. What I find with this team is it seems like when they do go on those kind of losing streaks and whatnot, it always starts with like a fail, like just a complete collapse late in the game. And you go back to Friday the 13th of all dates, and the Yankees collapsed and lost in 10 to Boston. And since then, they're not the normal, wow, this team's terrible, because they're in every game. But this is worse, Gary. The fact that they're in every game is just, again, coinciding with the fact that they're wasting great outings that are not going to be replicated later in the year. I'm telling you right now, enjoy what you're getting out of Yarbrough. You can't just assume he's going to do this the whole season. Enjoy what you're getting.
Do you think if Yarbrough is going to be pitching well in late September?
Well or okay? Like well as in good.
Well
okay.
As in what he was I wouldn't say what he was doing, because what he was doing was warranting like a $15 million a year contract. So no. But do you think Yankees fans, if they're up half a game in the division, and they say, well, there's 4 games left in the season, and they say, well, who's slated tomorrow to pitch, and they see Yarbrough's name, do you think we're like, oh, that's who we want out there? Do you think that's the case?
I think they feel good about Yarbrough pitching. I'm trying to be realistic here. I think Yarbrough can be okay at the end of the season, but I'm not 100% on, this continuing. Look, I'm not 100% Will Warren is going to continue this either.
That's also fair. That's part of what we were saying about it. He's never pitched
this many innings before. So
no.
And Clark Schmidt, bro, what were we just saying about Clark Schmidt? He can't stay healthy.
Innings.
I've never seen him pitch more than 159 innings in a season. Wouldn't he have to pitch close to that or more than that to finish out the year?
We at least need to get exactly what we're getting from the starting rotation, which has been great, right? Mm-hmm. Yarbrough has overall been great. I know he had a stinker against the Dodgers. That happens. But he's been overall great. Will Warren's been very good. He was really good yesterday. And you look up, Clark is starting to move in the right direction. Rodon, Fried, they've both been excellent. Now, we're basically getting all the production we could ask for given the injuries and the guys we have missing. Now, if this offense doesn't turn it on and those pitchers have any regression in any way, you guys are in trouble. I'm here to tell you right now, if all of a sudden you stop getting quality starts out of Yarbrough and maybe a Will Warren take a step back, even those two alone, you're in trouble. So you need to start scoring. And some players on this Yankees team have said the hitters and the offense carried at the beginning of the season, and that is true. But then the arms caught up and the hitters have regressed. So we need to help pick them up again. They better get on it quick because you don't want to run out of the magic here. This will not last forever.
The Yankees, because I think people need to have this in their mind when they're talking about this team. Right now, they're 42-31. Do you know what they were at the end of June 18th last year?
No.
51-24.
Yeah, and then we had our absolute collapse, and then we eventually turned it back on. So it seems like if you're the Yankees, you can easily say, oh, these just happen. It does just happen to you. Doesn't happen to any other team in baseball. There is no other contender that you could name, not the Dodgers, not the Mets, not the Phillies, not any other team in baseball, nobody, that every single year has a point in their season in the same month where they cannot win a baseball game. They don't have it. They definitely have losing streaks. We're not going to be naive to that fact. We talked about it earlier this year. The Dodgers went 4 or 5 days in a row. They couldn't win a game. But you know what? That was random. You know what they did the year before that? They were red hot that month. There are no consistencies about their struggles. They're surprises. How many people in our comment section tonight are genuinely, and I don't mean rooting against the Yankees, Jake, genuinely surprised that this is happening in June 18th? You actually text me before the season started, before the year started, and you mentioned, hey, did you notice what's going on in June and July with the Yankees? Did you notice that seems like a trend that's going on? I wonder how that's going to work if they're going to get off to
We talked
as
about
hot
that
of a
in our
start
preview.
to make up for that. Do you remember that?
I do. I remember to include it in our season preview. It was like,
And I was worried because we lose Garrett Cole, and I said, well, how good is Max Fried going to be? He's got to be electric to make up for that type of play that you mentioned in June and July. And sure enough, you know what I thought? I saw Max Fried pitch for the first month. He was sensational. You see, of course, sensational. Carlos Rodon pitch, and Carlos Rodon returned to form, returned to that White Sox form that we were all looking for. And I said, well, hold on a second. It seems like we're getting off to that hot start again. Awesome. Great. Even if we have that slide, we should be able to perhaps survive it. Or maybe this starting rotation is good enough to survive in June and July. And you know what happened? The offense was so bad, despite their great pitching, we're still losing. It's amazing what's going on.
Mind-blowing.
It is.
Truly.
It is mind-blowing.
The only... I'm looking at the losing streaks in this league. It is wild, okay? Just absolutely wild. The Nationals have lost 11 straight. Like,
they're currently in an 11-game losing streak?
They were 30-33. They've lost 11 straight.
That's tough.
The Yankees are tied for the second biggest losing streak with the White Sox, who, again, the White Sox are 23-50.
Okay.
Then you have the Mets, who have lost 5 straight. The Twins have gone from above 500 to now they're 500. They've lost 5 straight. Then after that, it's 3 straight, 2 straight. So there really isn't. Aside from the Nationals,
the Mets are the only comparable.
Yeah, the Mets
you're talking
are
about a team that
but
could go beat anybody technically, and to have a 5-game losing streak, it's bad.
But you know what about the thing about the Mets is that they're not a good road team. So that doesn't surprise me. You get caught on a road trip. Yeah, it's easy to lose 5 straight when you're not a good road team. The Yankees, this is wild because they were the number 1 offense coming into that series against Boston. They're as good of a road team as they are a home team. They have 21 wins on both sides. They're about as balanced of a team as you can get. And yet, here it is. And you can't even say it's home run or nothing is the reason why, oh yeah, everyone's swinging for the fences, and that's why. That's not it. There's more to it than that.
They also played the Rays. I mean, they also played the Rays, who are right on our heels. So that's also a part of this equation.
Mets aren't doing us any favors, that's for sure.
They're not doing us any favors, but they didn't play Anaheim. You know what I mean? So there's some context there that's to be had, and you understand that. The 6-10 stig
Rays,
with 5.
by the way.
Oh, what? Do you have some information about them?
Official Rays have won 12-8. It is now 1.5 games back. They are.
Oh boy,
man, they are coming.
Well, I'll tell you this: am I worried about the Rays? No. Am I worried about Toronto? No. But that's the least of my concerns, and I'm not saying that from the standpoint of they don't deserve any respect, because they do. They're still good teams in this league. They're well coached, right? I'm gonna say this though. If you guys can't easily outrun that, what's going on over there, regardless of what they do in the dugout, I'm here to tell you right now, if you can spend $300 million and find a way to make that close, that's the least of my concern. I'm concerned with you. I'm concerned with what's in-house. So if this goes south, I don't expect it to. I think we're going to get back on the horse. We're going to win the division. Boston probably finishes in second place somehow, right? And yet, you look up and say, well, if we get ran down by Tampa, people should be getting fired at that point. You get ran down by Tampa, you guys should be out the door. I'm not going to sit here on my podcast, on our podcast, Jake, and say, oh, are you guys worried about the Rays? Well, I'm here to tell you right now, I'm not worried about the Rays and the Blue Jays. I'm worried about my manager and my general manager. How do you guys and these players, how would you ever let that happen? And they haven't let it happen yet. But if it did, please, it's going to be hell in this podcast.
The silver lining is that this might actually push Brian Cashman to make a move.
Do you think it would? Really?
If they lose tomorrow, 7 straight, Brian Cashman, you've gotten enough into the season now where you're not like, oh, yeah, we're 10 games above 500 and we're fading. Let's just sell, right? This is the Yankees. I think he would have the opposite reaction. I think they could already be looking at something. I mean, think about this. We were talking about Moncada, right? He's not even in this lineup. He was the only one who was hitting, who was fielding. He had a great series, and the Yankees swept him. Without Moncada, it's like, I understand Trout is back, and Trout didn't play that series, but he hasn't been great. He's starting to show his age a little bit, Yeah,
it would need to be a wake-up call trade, though. If the Yankees did, let's just say make a trade, you lose tomorrow.
Maybe it is Suarez.
And I hope they don't. But if all of a sudden you look up and the Yankees are like, hey, well, by the way, we're making a trade. Oh, the guy's got a 4 ERA and he's got a nice savant page. It's not an eye-opener. But if the Yankees made it some type of big trade, then yeah, it probably would be. And again, guys, I don't expect Brian Cashman. I actually have the opposite opinion and takeaway. And I'm glad that you're thinking this way because it's the positive way. We can't just have 2 negative Nancys. I'll be the negative Nancy. I think Brian Cashman's like, no, this is no big deal. I think he's going to look at this and say, it's a blimp on the radar. It's a little rain cloud. By August 1st, we'll be hot again. We won't be talking about June. And we're going to be talking about, do the Yankees have what it takes to win series in October? And the conversation shifts to that. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Yankees are wildly aggressive at the deadline or even sooner than that. It's actually in our best interest for that to happen, Jake. But I don't know if I've necessarily seen it outside of the aggressiveness I saw last offseason where he did go out and trade for Juan Soto when he didn't have to do it at the time he did. So I gave him credit for doing that. The 6-10 stig with the 5, thank you for that, says, one, this team has 0 fundamentals/awareness. 2, the different lineups every day are so tiring. Championship teams usually have 1 through 7, same every day. So I would assume he's getting at, and maybe he's not talking about this directly, but I have a feeling it has something to do with it. Jason Dominguez led off yesterday. Jason Dominguez did not lead off today. So why? If you were so confident in that leading up, coming to Yankee Stadium, Why was that the decision on Tuesday? And then you walk up to the field on Wednesday and you're like, yeah, he's just not that. He's not cut up for that. Even though you told me the reasons why you put him at leadoff, and I agree with this super chat. Jake, what do you think about the idea of our lineup just being a jigsaw puzzle and no one could figure it out?
I've kind of gone back and forth on this, but I can tell you right now, Trent Grisham is not a good leadoff hitter. He's not. He had a 350 plus on base percentage the first month of the season, so it's inflating this on base percentage. But he's a 320 on base guy. Okay, that's what he is right now. You know, Jazz Chisholm I'd probably go with Jazz Chisholm to lead off. The speed, the power. You know, I'd actually go with him. You want to mix up something? I'd like to get him on base. And here's why, by the way. If we're doing this whole, Trent Grisham, like it's good enough 320 or whatever in the month of June and 330 last month, so he's declining, right? I'm not trying to hate on Trent Grisham. I'm just saying how it is. Trent Grisham is declining. He's regressing back to the mean. Did you know that Jazz Chisholm has a 335 on base percentage? That's better than what he's doing, right? But now the pop that we used to see from Grish, we don't see anymore. Whereas we do see it from Jazz, who had the home run today, right? And as I've said, in the month of June, Jazz has a 964 OPS. He's a 426 on base this month. That's
you're making
the guy.
Attempt. Yeah, you're making the attempt of players who are playing good baseball right now.
Yeah, that's the guy who should be leading off.
And stick it there. If he stops playing well, get out. Go back to sixth and stay there. But if you're playing well, and by the way, that's why Grisham technically is leading off in the first place. They said he's playing really well. Let's put him up at leadoff. Isn't that what they did with Ben Rice? Right? Remember that? Ben Rice. Oh, he's going to lead off. Oh, yeah, Goldschmidt. He's going to lead off. Why'd you do that? Oh, because they're hot. Okay, then if a guy's ice cold and leading off for your team more times than not, why aren't you playing the hot bat? What changed? So there's no consistency there. Obviously, that super chat is just on the freaking money. It just can't be any better. And Apex with the super says maybe we get a shortstop instead. No, there aren't any options to upgrade. There just aren't. I wish I could tell you.
IKF.
Oh, yeah. Well, we both
IKF's
like
having
IKF.
a better year, but yes, I will say, to your point, Volpe has better range. So he has, unfortunately, because he has better range, he's more likely to make an error than IKF is.
Yeah,
he gets
just
the balls
wildly
that IKF
unclutched.
just doesn't.
The problem with Anthony Volpe is that the routine play under duress isn't as sure of a thing as it should be. That's his biggest problem. It's not his bat. It's not the fact that he's not nearly as fast as most of us thought he was. It's not any of those things. It's not his arm. It's the fact that when routine ground balls are slapped over his way and you're like, oh, this ball's hit hard enough, he's got plenty of time to turn it. You can't just have the expectation he's going to. You actually are starting, as time goes on, to expect him to find a way to make a mistake. And that isn't us telling you we're rooting against him. This doesn't help us in any way if he doesn't make these plays. It just doesn't. The Yankees losing baseball games because their shortstop can't make a routine play doesn't help anybody. Doesn't help podcasters, doesn't help Boone, doesn't help Hal, nobody. So it's disappointing for all of us.
Podcasters.
What's that?
Well, I mean, we have 2,300 views on this.
Yeah, but we always have views. Apex with the super with the 2 said Boone and Volpe's answers pissed me off tonight. I think Boone's upset me. Volpe's didn't. I thought Volpe actually got out front of it and was like, I was terrible. And that's what you need to say.
I'm over all of it. It's all propaganda at the end of the day.
It is. Shut their mics off. Jeff J with the 10. Jeff has always been awesome to this pod. Thank you for that, Jeff. Says there are supposedly strict ownership requirements in George's will. I don't think Hal can sell. The problem is Hal and Cash grew up together. He relegates decisions to Cash, but they are like bros. They are very close. They are. And there's nothing wrong with that. But once you go across the line of that you can't tell someone, hey, you're not doing a good enough job in this moment, well, then it could be a problem. You can perceive it as already having been a problem. Jake, do you think that if Hal thought genuinely that Brian Cashman wasn't doing a good enough job with this team, doing a good enough job bringing star talent or even good enough talent to just win a World Series, and hard task, but needs to be done. Do you think that he would make the decision that has to be made, or do you think they are too close?
I like to think he'd make the decision. I think also, I mean, people have to understand they did just go to a World Series in again, whether I agree with the rationale or not, we've talked about before, they view it as a crapshoot, and they got to the World Series. So in a way, that was the most positive season they've had since 2009 by default. So if you're Hal Steinbrenner, and by the way, I wasn't really throwing Hal under the bus, saying he needs to sell, but I was just kind of making conversation based on the Lakers news because I thought it was interesting. I like Hal to a degree, but I just think he needs to increase that budget a little bit more. If he moves that payroll a little bit more up, I think the Yankees would have a huge difference because think about it. That payroll stopped them from going after Bregman. It stopped them from going at, regardless of what anybody says, it stopped them from going after Kyle Tucker. It has stopped them from making moves. It has. And so I try to also see both sides because Cashman, while, yeah, they're friends and they're close, we always hear Cashman doesn't have a ton to spend. Cashman's only spending what Hal is allowing him to spend. So
we should be spending more.
I agree. Yeah. I don't like I'm going to be honest with you. It's not that I dislike Cashman. I don't like Cashman. I just kind of like, he is what he is. He's probably a top 10 GM because the GMs in this league are dog water. But like, I don't really have, you know what I mean? I don't really, not as bad as the NBA. I don't think there maybe 5 smart GMs in the NBA. Everyone's a total
there aren't
Nimrod.
even any close second leads to the NBA.
You let Giannis Antetokounmpo go 19th overall. You're all idiots. Anyway, so the point being though is that Cashman is at least top 10. Like I can admit that. Just like Boone is a top 10 manager, regardless of how you feel. But there are, like, it's not perfect, right? It's not. Cashman's not perfect. And there are things that I don't like that he does. But again, I do feel like you're the Yankees. And you know, this is how I would say this, Gary. They've been operating as if no one really made a run at being the most valuable franchise in the sport. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of on autopilot with their set budget. They haven't really changed. They haven't really changed their payroll. They should, because you got to bump up that payroll. You got to be okay with taking on the luxury tax or whatever the hell. Because here's why. This is why I say this. Now you have competition on a level you never had before. See, back when George was the owner, no one was spending like the Yankees. That's why all the fans of other teams hated the Yankees. They would get everybody. Well, guess who's replaced them? The Dodgers. It's why everybody hates the Dodgers now. Also because the Yankees won, and now the Dodgers are winning. So really, in a way, while I don't dislike Hal, I feel like in a way he's failed because this is not what George would want. George would never be okay being second place or third place in going after a Juan Soto or going after a Kyle Tucker.
Because when Kyle Tucker is going to be a free agent this offseason, we're only going to talk about this for like 20 seconds. But Kyle Tucker is set to be a free agent, right? Yes. I said it's a must sign. I don't give a rip about what you're selling me with Jason Dominguez. I don't care at all. You can fire him to another planet for all I care. When that player, that level of player becomes a free agent, I expect you to sign him. I do, especially with the context of what just happened with Juan Soto. I'm fine. Another team went above and beyond on the offer with Soto. They offered an insane amount of money. So did we. We didn't get the player. You just move on. That's what you do. But I'll tell you what can't happen. When Kyle Tucker becomes a free agent, I asked you, do you think he's coming here? You said, I don't think it's going to happen. And you're justified to have that opinion because that's what the Yankees have shown. They're not willing to go above and beyond to bring players in. They're sort of going to sell you this PC answer, these, as you put it, NPC answers, and you don't look up and love who you've got in right field or left field, right? It's Aaron Judge, but then we're still kind of wondering, why don't we look like the Yankees of old? And some people will say it's because not everybody wants to play for the Yankees anymore, and I hesitate to say, well, if that's the case, you better up your offer. I think it's just that simple.
I don't think that's necessarily true either. I don't necessarily buy that like all the best players don't care about tradition. I don't buy that. I think a lot of people still care about the Yankees. We still hear it. We still hear from like, what was it? Pascantino said like, oh yeah, there's nothing like playing in the Bronx. Like there's still plenty of players around the league that have this like utmost respect for pinstripes. And I don't like the idea of succumbing to that belief of like, oh yeah, this is just kids these days. Like blaming the generation because you're not getting it done is wild.
We were the team winning at the time. We were also the only team willing to spend.
Yes.
So now that that's changed, and you mentioned that, Jake, there's 4 or 5 other teams now. The Phillies want to spend. The Mets want to spend heavily. The Dodgers want to spend more than anybody.
Giants.
And so now you have to wrestle with that. How much is your history going to save you in negotiations? Are you going to be able to say, they have the highest offer, but we have a very strong offer as well. They have to just want to come here. Well, that's not going to work. You're not going to be able to field a World Series winning team just waiting for players that just really want to play for you. Sometimes you need to go out and just get a player, and to hell with the dollar. So I just think that's what it is. Ed W with the 10. Ed, again, thank you for that. Says this feels like when a bunch of workers not showing up to work when the boss goes on vacation. Until Judge does active bed checks and plays MVP ball, it's almost everyone in a funk making excuses not to show. So yes and no. We've mentioned the fact Ohtani played terrible in the World Series. What happens next? Freddie Freeman shows up. Teoscar Hernandez shows up.
Thank you, Ed.
A couple guys in their starting rotation put the games on their back. So Tommy Edman puts a game on his back. So you see that it's possible for your best player to not bring his A game or just be flat out bad for a couple of days or maybe even a couple weeks. But when you have a great team that holds their players accountable, the others pull the rope and there's enough momentum to get across the finish line. The Yankees have none. It feels like we're just at a standstill looking around saying who's going to end this thing. And so far it's no dice. Nobody's ending it.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to take time, obviously. It is to kind of change what they're doing. But, yeah, it is frustrating. And, yeah, until things change, and I don't know if they will, or when they will. Because they will. I mean, things will change. I mean, the Yankees right now are in this drought. It's one of the longest droughts. If not, is it the longest? I don't think it's the longest, but it's one of the longest. Yeah. No.
World Series.
Yeah.
No, it couldn't be. I don't think so. But
no, it's one of them. But
it's one of them. Yeah.
But they're due to bounce back and have a run, and I'm sure they'll have that. But there has to be an adjustment, and that's kind of where I'm hoping Hal understands that that's not just going to happen. Just like, oh yeah, the universe is just going to turn everything the Yankees' way. They have to go and do that, and that's why, like for me. What I said about Kyle Tucker when he first became available, or the thought of him becoming available, is, wow, that was a gift from God. You lost Juan Soto, and then Kyle Tucker became available like instantaneously.
No, but we have to have Luis Hill. Have to, yeah.
You let him go to Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Well, they told us they would have never traded him to you. I'm like, yes, they would have. Yes, they would have. If the Dallas Mavericks would just send Luka Doncic. We're going to send him. Where are you going to send him? You're going to send him to Orlando? Where you send him? Oh,
I will say Mark Cuban would not have traded him to the Lakers. But yes, I know what you mean.
But it's just a way to get out of having any expectations of your team making any trades.
But why even make you're not on the roster's payroll, so why even make excuses for the Yankees? You know what I mean? Like, I never understand that. Like, oh, well, yeah, the Astros would have declined anyway. What?
Yeah, like why are you doing this? It makes me curious. I think it's the internet. I think that sometimes when everyone just kind of draws the same conclusion because it's the obvious conclusion, a future Hall of Famer became available, and they're asking for Luis Hill, and you won't give him up, and then you don't even put Luis Hill up there. You put something much lesser, and then they don't even call you back, and you go, oh, they wouldn't have said yes to the Hill thing anyway. Why are you doing this? There's no point to it.
Why are we acting like Heel was the only player on the table as well? Like, I'm sure there were other players. The point being is it never got close to anything that could have been considered even possible for a trade. It was all overblown because it was the Yankees. What I can't stand, though, is you'd think after a while, we've seen these trades between the Buffalo Bills and the Chiefs. We've seen these trades between the Yankees and the Red Sox, the Dodgers and the Giants, right? You think eventually people will stop saying, oh, yeah, rivals don't trade with each other. That is the most ridiculous thing ever. It just
They make trades if they think they won the trade. That's the thing.
Like
the Yankees and the Red Sox would make a trade with one another. The reason they don't make as many trades is because they both want to be sure I'm winning this trade. That's why you only see guys like Verdugo and Jeter Downs being traded, right? Because those are players that both teams are like, Alex Verdugo? Yeah, Alex Verdugo is a hot starter, and he's a joke in the second half of the season. What did he do with us? He was good for 3 weeks in the first month of the season, and then he was just a joke ever since. So Boston was like, oh, the Yankees want this player? Yeah, we'll trade with the Yankees because they want this guy. We'll win this trade, and that's why the trade happened. So anyone will trade with anybody as long as they think they're winning that trade. So, ridiculous.
No, it is. Mark, appreciate the 10. Bottom eighth, 1-1 count, runners first, second. Big Mo with anticipation. Yankees in house. DJ decides I can't even talk. It's appropriate to randomly play. Can I get a hoo-yah sound? Is this even a real organization at this point? Yeah, that was wild. Did you hear that?
Would you guys? No, I didn't hear it because I have the game on mute all the time.
Yeah? That's what they played.
It's not for boomers. I don't even know if it's for millennials at this point because they can't think.
No,
I won't speak for anyone. The Savannah Bananas have 100,000 people at every game, so maybe they're looking at Instagram and seeing sold out football stadiums. You guys can blame those people who go to that stuff. So I'm not saying it should end.
We call
there's
it TikTok.
Different flavors.
That's what it is.
Yeah. There's different flavors for different people. The Savannah Bananas are not for me personally. It's just not. But I have.
Oh, you don't like when you get a ground ball and then you do it through the legs and then you throw it and what the hell is that?
I go into the comment sections of those videos and they're just despicable. People are like, "Oh, it's the dancing from the umpire for me." I'm like, "This is disgusting. I hate this."
Yeah, why dancing? See, people compare it. It's funny they compare it to the Harlem Globetrotters. The Globetrotters aren't sitting there like they're actually playing basketball. They're just doing wild stuff. And it's similar, but like the dancing, nah, you lose me with that. But then again, to be fair, the third baseman's probably better than Volpe at this point if he can dribble between his legs and still get the guy out.
Yeah, we'll have to see what he does in a clutch situation. Like maybe Volpe can start doing backflips and he'll start to relax. Who knows?
Maybe.
Ed W says with the 5, thank you, Ed. He says team slump is like watching Serrano whiff at curves and trying to sacrifice a chicken instead of cracking the scouting. P.S. I have no idea what's going on. My 12-year-old might be cursed.
Is this Ed?
Oh, wait a minute. Didn't Ed, or was it whose son? No, it was someone's daughter went to today's game.
Oh my God, that's right. No, it was Ed. Ed brought his 12-year-old daughter. It was like, she'd never seen the Yankees win, I think.
And she never will. She never will. Unfortunate. Love language, passive aggressive with the 10. Thank you for that. A new name that we've been seeing in. Also recently a member says, why are the Yankees so bad at developing talent? We've seen a lot of mismanagement with rookie talent. Do you guys think we will ever have another core 4? So to answer your question, no. I don't think the Yankees will ever have a core 4 again. There's a reason that so many people, especially people over the age of 35, talked about that group is how special it is for that to happen. It's very difficult for guys, to keep a group together contractually, whether or not, and you're also talking about, when you say core 4, you're talking about development of 4 star-level players that can contribute to World Series titles. It's hard enough now to win, but to win with a core group that you developed, it takes a lot. And the last time I've really seen that happen was, Jake, those days in Houston, right, where they were tanking for picks and they were hitting on those picks. And obviously you saw what the Astros were able to do. We're not going to talk about how some of it got done, but point being, it's hard to develop a core to win. So to answer your question, no, I don't think a core 4 will ever exist. But do I think the Yankees at some point will wake up and bring in some real talent where you're proud of the core and not just it being developed? Yes, I think it'll happen. It's just a matter of when, and I hope it's soon.
I think the equalizer to the core four is that they have Aaron Judge, who's better than all four of those guys. So there you go.
That's fair.
I
mean, be better than all four of them put together.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Aaron Judge might be the greatest player I've ever seen. But anyway, yeah, no, I don't think so. I love the super chat. Really appreciate it. Love language equals passive aggressive. All these names, man, they're long. Ninja Hot Dog is back with the 5. There seems to be a disconnect when our prospects go from AAA to the majors. They suck when we bring them up, but when we keep them down, fans get mad. I love that. There seems to be a disconnect. They suck.
They unplug as soon as they get here.
Oh my god. Duh.
You know, I just realized though, before we get to this super, I'll let you go first, of course, since you read it. I've kind of realized we've really set the precedent. This podcast will never end. We have too many supers to possibly catch
insane.
up. What
have
happens?
You seen this before?
No. What happens then?
So what are you guys going to keep doing supers when they win again, or is this like, are we going to need to root for them to lose to get this?
No, they're gonna unplug like our minor league players. So
man,
what do you think this is like? Because earlier I said the reason for this is that I think the Yankees don't really know when to call up their prospects and when, like, they don't know when to do it, when not to, when a guy is here too soon to go back and then we'll bring him back, right? So does it matter? Like, he's asking, like, why are we not translating talent from the AAA to the major leagues? And of course, I talked about the gap there. There's a huge gap between AAA and major leagues. Jake, if you had to point to one thing, why do you think our AAA players can play well? Will Warren being the one player who never at any point was a good player. Never. And they called him up, and he did develop. He did. He absolutely has. Why do you think he's developing, and maybe most of these other guys are as, I can't remember what the other super chat said, but was it butt cheeks? I couldn't remember what they said. What do you think?
I think it's kind of along the lines of what I said when I was reading that article and I told you about it. I just think that previous generation, all these guys for the most part are part of that. And we're talking about archetype. They've changed that. They've changed what they care about. They've changed what they focus on. The development, kind of passageway, if you will, how they kind of go through it. I think that they have turned things around, and that is why that AA team is so fascinating to me, because all those guys are from like this new age, what they're looking for, how they've kind of changed. And it was, I wish I could find the article. It was great. And
so
it
you
really
feel like
kind of
that
explained.
AA group's a reset. Like that's the restock.
That's why I'm okay. Since that article, I've been in on Spencer Jones again. I was kind of like, you know me, I was kind of going back and forth. I was like, I love the guy. And when they drafted him, that's who I wanted. And I remember feeling the same way about Aaron Judge when they drafted him, because that's the only guy I wanted in that draft. This just feels different. Like, Rock Reggio is probably going to get traded. He is. He's hitting extremely well. They're probably going to sell high on him at the deadline, and they'll end up with, a bat or something, right? But I hope not, because I think this guy, being a part of like the new age, whatever, I think he could actually hit at the next level. And I think the thing that I was reading about him is that he had really worked on some things, because he was really struggling at the plate. This is his first year since like all of the work that he did, and now all of a sudden he has got 1,000 OPS and he's hitting bomb after bomb. I mean, these are the things that I focus on. Same thing with Carlos LaGrange. I mean, Rock Reggio is a 24th overall prospect. LaGrange wasn't in the top 10. Now Baseball America has him at, I think it was number 2 or number 3. Like,
really? Okay.
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying, is that you have these guys that might kind of fly under the radar, because really, I think they kind of get it wrong. And I told you this. Arias was ahead of Lombard Jr. for years, it felt like. Obviously not years. He's been here for, 2 years, 3 years?
And now that seems silly, because what George Lombard Jr. is doing, it seems that way. Yeah. Sometimes they can miss. I mean, it's okay to miss, and this is part of, because not everybody's seeing the same thing. But when you see guys like Jazz and guys like Giancarlo go down there and they say, oh, yeah, let me tell you what I saw. When I looked at what George Lombard Jr. is doing down there, it's popping off the screen. So it kind of begs the question, how were they so far down some of these lists? And I hope it works out. So, yeah, I want to see us develop players, but they've got to show me that they know what's going on. Chef Nick with the
Shout out Chef Nick.
Yeah, brand new says just subscribe. You guys rock. Love your channel. Nick,
Appreciate
thank you very much. Thank you. And then Mark Anthony with the 2. Man, a few words with the super with 2. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. And Apex says, reminder, Stroman's still coming back. I feel like Marcus Stroman coming back is like having an iPhone 16 and then going to the store and leaving with an iPhone 11. Like, it's just, there's no point. It just shouldn't happen. It's not part of the process. And Marcus Stroman, I think it's a little overblown of how difficult he is to deal with, because it's not that hard to deal with athletes to begin with. You just tell them where to go regardless. And for me, Marcus Stroman has a clear role. His role should be he's built up enough and quality enough to be in the bullpen, to pitch and give us length in games that get away from us. If we're down and we need innings, let him go out there and take his lumps. He's certainly good enough to potentially give you something. But if he doesn't, it's no big deal. That's where I think his value is. I don't think it's even possible to trade him. I know, Jake, you mentioned maybe they'll pitch him to hype up that trade value just a little bit and maybe get him out the door.
He's pitching well right now in what is it, AAA, AA? He's looked really good in his start, so who knows?
I mean, I would wish you were right, but do I think it's going to happen? I do not. Ninja Hot Dog, love these names, love the dog even more, says, thank you for the 2. Said they didn't try to fix any of last year's problem. I disagree with that. I think a lot of the people they brought in, Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt, what they do against lefties, reverse splits, all this, they did a lot. They improved their infield defense.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah.
Ironically, Volpe, who was a bright spot for the defense, has been horrific as of late. So
yeah, is he our worst infield? So you actually, hold on a second. You can actually make the argument.
You can.
The position we're struggling at the most in the infield is Anthony Volpe at shortstop. You can make that argument. Yeah.
Because, people got on Jazz for not making the play the other night. I still think Jazz is already a top 5 third baseman in the league. Just like when Jazz plays second base, he's a top 5 second baseman. Jazz is an elite athlete. Jazz should maybe play shortstop, and Anthony Volpe should play second. But like the reality is, no, Jazz is not the issue. Volpe, boots balls more than you would expect. By the way, I think it was 2 nights ago, LeMahieu let one get under his glove. He's been a pretty good glove over there at second. So, yeah, it's really been Volpe, man. I mean, you're definitely not going to say Goldschmidt. And real quick, infield, gotta give a shout out. Got to give a little bit of a clap here to Ben Rice, who threw out Logan O'Hoppe. We're going to do it
from his knees.
I don't remember the last time a Yankee catcher threw somebody out. And the funniest thing is that it was Ben Rice, who we were explicitly told he can't play catcher because he can't throw out anybody. And of course, we talked about him playing catcher yesterday. He's in the lineup today, making his debut as a starting catcher. And the funny thing I thought about that was I went back and remembered what we talked about. Do you remember what I said? It doesn't matter. He can't throw anybody out at catcher. No one else can.
Yeah, so let him not
throwing out anybody.
Yeah, even if that ended up being true, he never threw out a single person the rest of the season. And Austin Wells threw somebody out like 2 weeks ago, but it was at third base. Huge difference. Yeah. And we care about Ben Rice in the bat. Ben Rice, by the way, is hitting 228. His ops is still in the high 700s. That his luck does have to turn around to some degree. It's not all chalked up to luck, but there's more to work with. We have more reason to believe the bat from Ben Rice will turn around and explode before Austin Wells does. That's the reason he caught today. So I like that I saw that. It's a bright spot in a horrible day of a rain cloud of a day, but something good happened. And Mark Anthony with the 2 says Volpe is 3rd in RBIs on the team and 5th best batting average. I think he's trying to say that this is like a good thing. I don't. I think if I look at my team and the guy who's driven in the 3rd most runs is Anthony Volpe, I'm not feeling very good in big games. I'm going to say that. And also, if you really rank who are our best players in our lineup, a lot of them have spent time at the leadoff position. Paul Goldschmidt, Ben Rice spent a lot of time at the leadoff position, and a lot of our best players are splitting time. So, Mark, I think this is great data. It's obviously accurate, but some of the context of how often some of our better players are playing, has something to do with that.
The way I would say is that Volpe is having a really good year for a 7-hitter. That's what I would say. That's not necessarily good that he's third in RBIs and fifth in batting average on a team. Like
fifth
this
for a while too. They had him
and to be
higher
fair,
up in the lineup.
You know why he's higher?
Why?
Because Mayhew, who's been a starter every day pretty much since he's come back, except for a few games or whatever, he was hurt for most of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And Jazz Chisholm, he got hurt, and Cody Bellinger got hurt. So that matters, Dominguez hasn't played as much because then you have Grisham. So it is a little bit overblown, I would say, because, yeah, I mean, that's how I would say. And I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I can at least give him credit for being a really good 7-hitter. What I can't give him credit for is what he does in the clutch, because it's non-existent, except for the home run in the World Series.
Yeah, he definitely played well in the World Series. And we'll get back to some of the supers from Apex. And Adam with the 20 says, Gary, I know people like to blame Boone, but I do believe our players are consistent enough or have the intangibles, especially on offense, to compete with elite teams. Do you agree? No, I don't.
I mean,
I don't. I do not.
I think they can win against anybody, and I didn't until recently think they could lose to anybody. And
I don't think we can beat. I don't think we can beat everybody. No.
Oh, I think they could beat anybody in one game.
Well, but who can't? That's the thing. The Los Angeles Dodgers could play the Padres and lose, but would you be able to do that in a series? No, they wouldn't.
Like a 3-game series.
We're not going to play them. We're not going to play them in that. That's the thing. So when we're talking about what really matters here, and that's like what Adam's getting at, is that when he talks about these elite teams, all that matters for this team is what can they do? What can you project in the future? We never beat a single great team. Like an elite team, the key word there is elite teams. Were the Cleveland Guardians an elite team last year? No. Were the Kansas City Royals an elite team last year? No, not even close. Mind you, we still deserve credit. We took care of business. That is great. No way around it. You have to do it. But we ran into one elite team and we lost in 5 games. Whichever way you want to slice it, we should have done this. We could have done that. Well, we shouldn't be doing this either, but we are. So to answer your question, Adam, do I think we can compete with elite teams? Yeah, I think we can compete with them. I think all teams that will be there at the dance at the end of the year, they can all compete with one another. We needed Juan Soto hit a heroic home run to beat Cleveland. But in the end, did you think Cleveland was going to beat us? No, you didn't. No one thought they would. And yet we were still happy to beat them. So my point is, we're going to compete with anybody. We're going to get back on the horse. But we don't have good enough habits to believe, not just can we beat these teams, will we beat these teams? I don't think we should project that level of confidence unless something changes, and I hope it does.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that happy medium where it's like, yes, I'm concerned about the way they're playing right now, but I also don't want to wipe away what they've done this year and what they've accomplished. And I think really it just remains to be seen. I think you look at the Dodgers, you look at the Red Sox. Those are the teams that the Yankees just seem to really struggle against. We'll see if other teams get collected on that list, but was impressed with their series against the Mets because last year the Mets really gave him issues, and the same could be said about teams like the Padres. So yeah, it's right now it sucks, but it's not the end of the world. It's frustrating to have that balance where you're like, yeah, this is incredibly frustrating to watch, agonizing. But at the same time, this isn't like who they are. Like they're not about to do what the Nationals did and, lose 11 straight or whatever. I think they probably win tomorrow. I do. But yeah, it is frustrating to say the least. And it does hurt any argument right, that you had. Like, I still think they're going to go to the World Series. I'm not saying they're going to win, but I still feel like they are that team. It's just right now they're going through it big time.
I think we're going to lose to Detroit.
I don't. But, I mean, hey.
We don't play good enough baseball. We don't play a high enough brand of baseball that's smart enough for me to believe in 2-0, 2-1 games and that type of style of game. I feel that's just asking me to guess. If you asked and said, what does Detroit look like? In all of the games, man at second base, you say, what does it look like in extra innings when you're starting the game? They're letting you start the home half of the bottom of the 10th, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to score to win. What type of choices does Detroit make? What type of choices do the Dodgers make, right? A lot of these teams that expect to win or it's a failure. What do they choose to do? They may fail, but the actual choice of what they do isn't a mistake. We are making mistakes in our choices at all of the important times of the game. We're not talking about just it being June 17th or June 18th. No. It's about what do you do when you have to get something done. And the Yankees, I like our players. I like our lineup. Actually, I do. I like our starting rotation. I like our coaches. I do. But do you make the correct choices when the game's on the line? Do you level up when you've essentially got to get it done? I don't see that. So do I think the Yankees will be there in these games and we'll forget about these conversations by the time that comes? Sure, I do, because it'll be close. But ultimately, do I have confidence that when we face Detroit that, oh, well, we're still the Yankees and they're still the Tigers, so we're just going to find a way, the way I felt about Cleveland and Kansas City last year? No, I don't see that gap, and there should be a gap. There absolutely should be a gap wide enough for these two teams where both of us, Jake, you think we'll beat Detroit. I don't have that level of confidence. We both should, and the reason we don't both think this is because of these type of lulls that you're watching today.
If they lose to Detroit, then AJ Hinch is clearly just a better manager than Boone. And it wasn't even that the Yankees and the Astros get into cheating all you want, get into talent all you want, then it'd be official for me to believe that AJ Hinch was just a better manager than Aaron Boone.
I already think that.
I mean, there's a chance. I don't know for sure. We'll find out. But, I mean, he's more accomplished for sure.
Yeah, and the accomplishments, too, there's so many different variables. But do they make the smart choices? Who's behind that? A lot of their players say he was. So, yeah, I don't know. For us, we're making. Hey, Jake, by the way, I left this super on the chat for you because I see your name. So yeah, I'll get out the way.
Yeah, there are. I think there's about 10. If anyone just happens to be a Rams, 49er, Seahawk, or Cardinal fan and is trying to go to Rams in a Yankee show, is trying to go to the Rams 49ers Thursday night game, we're doing like a big live podcast hangout. You could buy tickets. The ticket comes with just like the tailgate experience, but you also get a ticket to SoFi Stadium. It's a whole big thing. So, yes, Stockton, there are about 10 left last time I checked. But once they're gone, they're gone. So, because they're already bought and paid for. So, anyway, enough about the NFL.
Yeah, Apex says at least Luis is making progress, and Weaver says he's fine. Yeah. There's some positive news.
I really don't want to hear Weaver says that he's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'll see you in 2 months.
Yeah, like, dude, we literally just talked about this with Stan. Yeah, he's been hitting for 2 months. Okay, well, why the hell is he not? Oh, why'd I have to bring up Stan? Why was he not in the lineup today?
I told you he wouldn't be, didn't I? And I was joking. So I'm not going to take credit for this. But I said, oh, yeah, Stan probably won't play. He's going to get a day. That's the exact word choice I had. So it just goes to show you, back to what Michael K said, it's not a good problem to have. You're just sitting guys just because you just could.
Well,
it's not. It's stupid.
You've lost 5 straight. You don't sit the best hitter in your lineup. Stan is like what Aaron Judge was the whole year, and now Judge has forgotten how to hit.
They tell us it was short-sighted to play him, however many days in a row, back from injury, and just to essentially cancel out a losing streak. I disagree. You guys should be taking this game serious. They don't.
Actually, I'll make an argument for you. Ready for this?
I'm ready.
Aaron Judge, and keep in mind, you and I defended Aaron Judge getting a day off because they had 16 straight games. And
yes,
keep
we
in mind,
did.
that could, I'm not trying to make excuses, but I am starting to understand that they do need an off day. That, without a doubt, they clearly need an off day. They're not getting one until next Thursday, I believe. So tough shit, I guess. But here's the deal, right? We agreed, we understood why Judge didn't play that last game of the Royals series, right?
Yes.
And then we totally criticized them because they're like, yeah, he's going to come in and pinch hit. It's like, I thought he wasn't available. Why? If he was going to pinch hit, then he should have just DH'd. Well, guess what? Since that, he's 2 for 27. It absolutely took him out of his rhythm, whether you want to admit it or not. That's just the reality of it.
Because it has to just be random technically. Technically speaking.
Yeah.
You have to believe he received that day off, and then it's just completely random that he was red hot before that, electric before that. We saw no sign of him stepping off the gas pedal. He was still hitting like 390 plus. He's now in the 370s. So that is, if you want to chalk it up to just randomness, by all means do that. I'm not going to try on this podcast to change anyone's opinion. Everyone's entitled to it. But Jake, that's an interesting tidbit. And Stockton Slap 209 says most mega contract players
I brought it up
implode
because
with
of
bad
Stanton,
contracts. You brought what up?
I brought it up because of Stanton, not just Judge. So you're telling me, Judge is in the rhythm and you take him out. Don't you think Stanton, who has barely hit all year, he's hitting 500? He's 4 for 8? That's not a guy that you should be taking out, right? That's a guy who should continue to hit.
Like 2 years ago, the Michael K did say, as you can see, I listen to a lot of Michael K. He said,
yeah,
the one thing that bothers me of what Boone does, and he doesn't criticize Boone often, and obviously he covers the Yankees, not gonna do that every day. But he said the one thing that does bug me, it seems like we just have scheduled days off. People don't just sit because they're maybe ailing or there's anything wrong with them. It's just this predetermined decision. And that's what it seemed like with Stanton. It seemed like it didn't matter what the context was of how he was playing. Matter of fact, the context was that he was one of our better bats in the lineup that week. And yet, they didn't use that context to make a decision at all. They just said, it's his time, and then you're just going to go sit on the bench. And these lesser players are going to go out there and play and lose us games. So, to your point, it's just stupidity. It's embarrassing. It shouldn't happen. But this now would be malpractice on our parts as fans, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what we are. It would be malpractice of us to be shocked that any player sits for no reason. They sit because that's what their schedule says it's going to be.
Yeah, I don't love it. I don't. I'm really not a fan of it, but yeah, they're going to keep doing it. Most mega contract players implode with bad contracts. First thing I thought of was Justin Upton on the Padres.
I don't really agree. So if you think about this...
But not always. This doesn't always happen.
Because we don't talk about this with the Dodgers, right? We don't talk about this with certain teams. If you look at a lot of teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to look at this from a standpoint of part of it is that you need to do your homework, right?
Yeah.
If you look up and say, well, did Manny Machado's deal with the Padres work out? Yes, actually, his mega contract worked out so well. They actually wiped it clean and created a new mega contract. It worked out, right?
Yeah.
And I understand you can also say, well, that anecdotal evidence, you can use some more and say, well, Mike Trout, he's banged up and you see what's going on with that contract, right? A lot of the top 10 contracts in baseball, they're hurt. Well, what do you guys want? Because if you think about this, to sign free agents, they don't become free agents till about 7 years into their baseball career. And really what you're looking for when you talk about these mega deals, you need to win in the first 3 or 4 years of these contracts. If you're looking to sign a player to an 11-year contract and you're thinking in year 9 or 10 of that deal, they're going to be part of the main reason of how you win a World Series title, you're mistaken. You bring these players on, those years of 10-year contracts, years 5 through 10, those are just icing on the cake for the player. years 1 through 4, we look at Garrett Cole. We signed him to a 9-year contract. Were you guys waiting for age 37 Garrett Cole to help us win a title? No, you weren't. You were expecting Garrett Cole in the COVID season or 2021 all the way up until today to help us win one time, at least once in the prime of his career. So I don't agree about these mega contracts. I think it's a way for us to rubber band back to never paying these guys. I don't believe in it. You guys got to win and time these contracts correctly. When you bring in the mega deal, make sure you're ready to win right now.
This is true. Jeff J. Wow, we got so many super chats. Jeff J, appreciate the 5. This team is no longer feared. Crap teams come in and punch us in the mouth. This is Baboon's legacy. Cream puff. We need swagger. We need our
Love
swagger
the emphasis
back.
on the, because the extra Eve just got tagged on there.
I had to, man. It's exactly how
awesome.
they write it. You know, you got to give them their money's worth. Yeah, I mean, I don't think people are fearing the Yankees in June. That might be different in the postseason if Kansas City comes there. They swept Kansas City out the wazoo, you know, Guardians, whatever. But you're not doing it in June, and you're definitely not doing it during a 6-game losing streak.
Do you think we scare any elite teams?
I mean, I'd be scared to face Max Fried and Carlos Rodon and the way the pitchers have been and the way the hitting was.
Because the way the Yankees were, remember, in 98, when the Yankees showed up to the yard, let's use Little League comparisons. Anytime you have a coach, some volunteer, and they're like, hey guys, why don't you guys relax? We're not playing the Yankees out there. They're not the Yankees or any of the other. They always said that, right? Because when you say that, it's synonymous with they're not the most feared thing in the world. They're just a Little League ball club. That's what your coach is telling you, is that stop fearing the opponent, stop fearing who's on the other side, and play your game. The Yankees used to be feared. They were. And a lot of other fans, and some prominent fans as well, say, why do the Yankees think that people are afraid of the pinstripes anymore? And by the way, they're right. Why would they fear us? We haven't won in 16 years. I'm not here to sell you guys that other teams should be afraid of us. We don't win when it matters. So when you start winning when it matters, right? The Dodgers just did that. The Dodgers also are returning Ohtani to the mound. They bring in Blake Snell. They're doing things to try and improve their ball club. They bring in Sasaki. You just showed you can win. You don't think the Padres have any fear in their eye when they come up to Dodger Stadium in the postseason this year? Of course they are. It's because of what just occurred, winning. So if we want to be feared again, Jeff, we better start winning in a hurry. And if you don't do that, you can't ask people to be afraid of someone who doesn't win.
Yeah, and the way that people still talk about the Yankees, they're still feared. I don't care what anyone says. Just like...
In what regard?
They're not the Dodgers, but they're still talked about as like when everybody is talking about teams, it's the Dodgers, it's the Yankees, it's the Mets get talked about. You're in that pocket of teams that are just simply better than everybody else by the assumption. Like the Phillies are up there, the Braves normally, not this year. So yeah, I mean, and clearly like maybe not right now, but who's a better AL team now that like the Astros dynasty kind of died down? And
nobody. The American League is terrible.
Yeah,
No team, in my opinion, no team
World
is
Series.
Feared. I think there's one feared team in Major League Baseball right now, and it is the Los Angeles Dodgers.
I think it's a different level. Like I think they're this is how I'll describe them. They're like the what is it? The thing that Michael Jordan was in, Space Jam. That's what they are. They're like the monsters. You know what I mean? That's
the Monstars?
Yeah. That's what we're looking at. They're just different.
But we're supposed to be the Monstars. That's the thing. And by the way, you can't force people to view you in a certain way.
I'd never
you
do
have
that.
to be that.
You never want to be like, no, we're the Monstars. Like, no.
No,
then
but when
like
you said that they're
intimidating.
feared, you also named 5 other teams. There are not 5 other feared teams. There just aren't. Fear is being afraid of someone besting you. This team, if we see them, we have a problem. I don't look at the Phillies and say, oh, if we run into them in the division series, we should be fearful. I believe if a team like the Arizona Diamondbacks ran up and said, we're playing the Braves in this series, they're not getting extra hyped up for this series because Philadelphia is on the other side. They're not on that level, and they know this. Why? Because they never won anything. So the Yankees, in order to build the brand that we had, I said had, we don't have it. We need to reestablish our dominance and create fear by winning. So that's what I'm hoping for. I have no say in it. I don't get to create. Jake and I don't get to come up with the trades in late July. We don't get to do that. We get to hold interviews.
You would have
talk
thought
about.
We had Jazz Chisholm.
Yeah, we did have that on the money. We did.
Like, we nailed that. Like, I don't care what anyone says.
But we did. But I'm going to say this. We don't have any say in it. But all of these trades that we talk about and all the stuff for them to do, hold people accountable, is also that we can maybe get a sniff of actually winning. Not winning a pennant, winning a World Series. And why does that matter? Because once you start seeing the Yankees win a World Series and then we go into the free agency, sign a Kyle Tucker, right, or whoever else and improve on a World Series team, teams start to say, well, the Yankees are a problem again. How many players are going to go to the Yankees? And when you start saying someone's a free agent and the first name out of everyone's mouth of where that player might go, and they start saying the Yankees are interested, and it puts fear back into people's hearts, we're not there. I agree with you, Jeff, but I hope, and Jake doesn't, but obviously we just have different definitions of what fear is.
Yeah.
I think that's more of respect, and we have respect, certainly, but genuine fear, I don't know that exists right now.
All right. This is how I would say it. The Yankees and the Dodgers are the most feared teams. The Yankees in the AL, Dodgers in the NL. If the Yankees tomorrow got Paul Skeens, everyone would be like, oh, no. And if the Dodgers got Paul Skeens, everyone would be like, all right, we're not watching the MLB anymore. Like that. So that's the difference.
Do you see the difference? That's the level of difference. Is what are we going to do now?
That fear is there for the Yankees. Like, make no mistake about it. If they're like tomorrow they acquire Paul Skeens, it's like really?
Yeah, and unfortunately, we, even if that were possible, people just kind of assume the Yankees will call and just not get it. I see exactly what you're getting at. I do.
I'm saying it's a different level. Like, the Dodgers are in a league of their own. That's where the Yankees used to be, and now they're not.
Fear
there.
Resides. Yeah. Fear resides where the boogeyman is, and the boogeyman is in Los Angeles, unfortunately.
But at the same time, and this is how you can figure this out. I'm a big horror fan, all right? Mm-hmm. Michael Myers is the most iconic horror slasher, whatever. So Michael Myers is the Dodgers, right?
Okay.
Doesn't mean you're not scared. It doesn't mean you're not scared of Freddy Krueger. Doesn't mean you're not scared of Jason Voorhees or Chucky, or it's like they all, so the point being,
we're just not nearly as.
The point being is, like, when you have that guy who you think you've knocked out, and this is Michael Myers in Halloween, if anybody's ever seen it, and he's just laid straight out. He's just laying down, he's knocked out, and then he sits up like this all in one go and then just tilts his head over at you. Yeah, you're fearful of that guy. That is the Dodgers.
I'll agree with you, by the way. If the Yankees did make a major move, like a big move, right, and didn't accept that we're just still good, we're still absolutely the most feared team in the American League, right? By the end of the year, not right now. Right now, the Angels aren't even afraid of us. We're not. We're like little mice in a library. We're not scaring a soul.
Little mice.
But in late September, we've got too much talent. We always end up finding a way. Yes, in comparison to the other teams in the AL, but if the Yankees at the deadline make a monster move, bring in a great player, yeah, I think a lot of people would say they scare me a lot more than they do today. But they haven't done that yet. So we'll see what they do.
A good example of this, right? Kyle Tucker goes to the Cubs. No one's like, oh boy. Kyle Tucker goes to the Dodgers. Everyone's just like, all right, I'm clocking out, not watching baseball this year. Kyle Tucker goes to the Yankees. Ah, shit. Kyle Tucker goes to the Mets. That could be problematic. Those are the tiers. So, like, that could be problematic. The Yankees, it's like...
If Kyle Tucker, let's just say, was traded to the Mets instead of, right? Instead of the Cubs, I believe the Mets probably would present more fear to people than... And mind you, that's just about what you've chosen to do. You've been aggressive. The Yankees struck fear into people, not just because they were winning. They were already inherently understood to be the most aggressive team on the market. That's what scared people as well. We know that the Dodgers, by the way, have been hearing this report, not a ton lately, but did hear it, that the Dodgers will be kicking the tires on Kyle Tucker this offseason. Does that surprise anybody? No, it doesn't. Why? Because we assume they're just one of the most aggressive teams in the league. So that's where fear comes from. And Mark says, here's another super. Thank you, Mark, for the 10 to keep the show going.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm going to turn 32 before this episode ends. I present to you haiku generated by Chat GPT. Oh, God. Bat silent again. Bronx winds echo empty hopes. Pinstripes chase lost sparks. I was not expecting to see AI.
So we got a AI haiku on the podcast. You never know what you're going to get with Yankees Unloaded. You do know Gary and I are going to give you a million analogies. That's just like, it's like you're watching.
We're descendants of Colin Cowherd is what we are.
You could just tell. You could tell. They're like, oh yeah, Gary, Jake, have you guys watched Colin Cowherd before? Nope. Definitely not.
No, never. I never woke up every single morning and watched the show. Never. That's never happened. And Mark again with the 5. Thank you for that, Mark. Says per Katie Sharp. She's always great. Yankees 7-game spans with 7 runs or fewer and 6+ losses. June 12th through the 18th, 2025. September 1st through the 7th, 1908. We're making history, boys. We are historically bad right now. Just no matter what you guys think about this lineup, this group's found a way to be worse offensively, because I'm going to chalk it up to the offense and nothing else, not even the defense. Today, our defense really let us down. We can't win because we can't hit. We can't score.
They weren't even the Yankees.
Proportions. In 1908?
Yeah, they were called the Highlanders.
We were the Highlanders in 1908? I thought we were the Yankees.
I thought so too, but apparently we were the Highlanders. What the hell? I had to look it up.
I didn't know this.
51, 103, and 1.
Do you guys understand how many baseball teams were like, oh yeah, we can't wait, right? Coming out of spring training or just coming out of training in general. Let's get the season started. And they all had 7-game stretches all in succession, year after year after year, week after month after year. I'm telling you guys, no Yankees baseball club outside of a 1908 ball club in early September, and they finally found a way to be as bad offensively as the 2025 New York Yankees, who ranked 3rd in overall offense in the league, not just the AL. What the hell are we doing? That's a great bit of information, by the way, from Katie. That's awesome. But
she's great.
I just wonder what we are doing over here. And we don't get to help. We're not hitting coaches. We're not even saying someone should be fired, Jake. We're just saying, when does it stop? And that's what we just hope it's tomorrow. I know you said it could be. I hope so.
Yeah, the Yankees were horrendous when they first started, by the way. So their first year was 1913. They went 57 and 94 and 2.
Okay.
Then they went 70, 84 and 3. Then 69, 83 and 2. Then 80, 74 and 2. Finally above 500 in 1916. And I don't know anybody in this lineup. No, not a soul. Oh, Wally Pipp. I've heard of him. That's it.
Wally Pipp?
Yep.
That sounds like a shoe shiner. I've never. What? That is crazy.
They also had Home Run Baker. That's such a 1916 name. Home Run Baker. 71 and 82 and 2 in 1917. 1918, which for a while that was a great year to make fun of the Red Sox for. They went 60, 63 and 3. Then 1919, they went 80, 59 and 2. And then finally, they had over 90 wins, 95 and 59 in 1920. And that, obviously, we know a little bit more. Babe Ruth. There's Wally Pipp again.
Wally Pipp. I've never heard that name. And
how
Jeff
have you not heard of Wally Pipp?
How would I? I mean, I was literally negative 70 years old when he was in his playing days. So, I mean, that's why.
I mean, that's not an excuse.
Never heard of the bloke. Jeff J with the 2 says,
man.
Baboon doesn't believe in streaks or hot hands. That is true. He'll tell us, if he was listening to this podcast, he'd be like, yeah, I do. I believe in hot streaks. I'm like, then really, why don't you just play the hot hand every day? Why is that? And he would tell me, well, because I've got to keep guys like fresh and I have multiple jobs at hand. No, you don't. You should be playing the hot hand every single day, over and over and over again till you're blue in the face. And then you look to your right, you look to your left and say, are any of these guys tired? Do they need a day physically? If the answer is yes, you look at your depth and say, hey, Pablo, you're going to go out there and waste all of our time for 9 innings. And then tomorrow, the guy that you're going to be playing in front of, he's going to play again for another 20-some days, unless he's hurt. That's how you manage a baseball club. We don't do that. So the hot hand just goes to die in New York.
By the way, the Yankees were doing that, like playing the veteran over the young player back in the day, because Wally Pipp at first base was playing over Lou Gehrig.
So he was the DJ LeMahieu of 1921?
No, right. He's Trent Grisham.
Oh, he's Trent Grisham.
Yeah. No, it's actually funny because I think I saw it real quick. It was 1923, I think it was. Lou Gehrig had a 1200 OPS, and Wally Pipp was playing over him with a 749.
So who's got a 749? You know what? So Wally Pipp was basically Anthony Volpe.
Oh, my God. No, but he also hit 304, so he just had no pop.
Never mind. Yeah, Volpe's hitting 235. Zoke Apple with the 2.
Hey,
didn't say anything, but definitely supporting the channel. Thank you for that. We finally made it to the end of the supers. We've done it.
We made it. So
we are easily the only podcast that respects that. I don't know what we're going to do, by the way, when this podcast is like 4 times as big. Because we're not doing Joe Rogan. This was a literal Joe Rogan length podcast. You already know people get so upset. Occasionally, they'll be like, why is the podcast 2 hours? We lost. Wally Pipp was a baller. We need Wally Pipp merch.
Oh, my God. Wally Pipp. Shout out to Wally Pipp, famous for missing a game. Lou Gehrig started. That was it for Wally Pipp. Hey, damn. I mean, my guy hit 280 for his entire career. So
look at these names. Shorb Shib. That sounds literally like a player in 1921.
It sounds like an MLB 2K5 generated name.
Shorb Shib.
That Kiko. I had this guy, Kiko Butts. He was like the best player in the league.
Really? Mine was Giuseppe Juarez.
I love how you do
MVP of the year. Yeah, literally MVP. Giuseppe
I mean,
Juarez.
Reggie Stalker was amazing because obviously that was Barry Bonds. Good. But yeah, Kiko Butts randomly hit like 417 in a season. He was never on my team. He was always on the Red Sox, and I hated him. And he's not even. I thought he was real because I was young. And my dad's like, "There's nobody named Kiko Butts in MLB."
Let's get to our let's get to this super and let's get to our Profit X picks. I feel bad for Profit X. They're like, so when are they going to do their when are they going to be doing their read? Oh, we're going to do it 2 hours and 25 minutes into it.
Happens.
But Mark with the 10, thank you so much for that, Mark. Says in terms of how Cashman and Boone relationship, this sounds like it's going to be good.
Oh boy.
That should never dictate the feel of the ball club and the house and the team, regardless of record or friendship. Leon Rose and Tibbs is a clear example. So I guess the question is, our GM seems to not have a ton of urgency, right? It feels like, okay, this is just one of many. We'll get back on the horse. Don't worry about it. Our manager echoes the exact same sentiments, right? Then you have Hal. He kind of stays out the way. I mean, I really can't say what his temperament is right now. He's not giving us any nuggets. But then you look at Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is kind of, he's not saying literally this is one of many, but he's not, his job's not to freak out. He can't just come out and be like, what are we doing? But is he giving us straight answers the way that maybe a Giancarlo Stanton would? No. So I don't know. I do think the players could potentially have a little bit more responsibility than what we're giving them credit for, or I guess blame for. So great point, Mark. Yeah,
no, I like that. I think, really what it comes down to is, again, I'm not like totally against those three guys. Like, I'm not saying that they need to be fired. I think I just would like to have a little bit more urgency at the deadline than last year. Like, it was Delos, Meatballs, Jazz, and Mark Leiter Jr. And obviously two of those guys worked out. Like, they're still part of the roster. But, like, the Delos Meatballs trade did not need to happen. Like, it just didn't. Like, I understood. I understood they were doing it because of his K rate, but like everybody, he was from the Padres, right?
Yeah, but I guess they probably would tell you it's the same reason we brought in Cruz. High K rate, great splitter, ERA is horrible, and then we're gonna see if we can fix him. So,
yeah, but wasn't he a fastball guy? I never trust that.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Yeah, so he didn't have like a craft pitch. Like, that's the thing. Like,
it's true.
Cruz has a pitch that's probably the most unhittable pitch when he's throwing it perfectly. You know, but that's what we got. Appreciate you, Mark. Appreciate everybody for the super chats. Good Lord. We're going to do Prophet X here, and then I'm going to say in the comments section, I want you guys to drop Quentin Tarantino, because it's been a Quentin Tarantino level film.
I'm going to make this. I didn't explain it well enough last night. The comment section is not the live comments. The comments is like the post comments. So when the video is now no longer live and then it's just a regular video, you have to load back in and then leave a comment. Quentin Tarantino, Jake?
Quentin Tarantino.
Okay. And what are we thinking for tomorrow? Obviously, we have Rodon on the mound, so
this is going to be easy.
It should go well. But
you ready for this?
Rodon can't swing the bat. What's it going to be?
Yeah. Tyler Anderson only gave up 1 run his last outing against the Yankees. He has a 4.44 ERA, but you know the Yankees make everybody look like Sandy Koufax. So we're gonna have Tyler Anderson and Carlos Rodon combining to keep this under. We're back, baby. Under 5 runs in the first 5 innings.
If we hit the over, we're the worst at this you've ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, you can do pitcher win now? I'm not touching that. Like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Not touching that. Strikeouts, I'm going to give that to Rodon.
Okay.
I think Rodon shoves tomorrow.
I would agree
because
with you.
He's been sitting on the bench watching this catastrophe. Keep that in mind. I am going to say Giancarlo. I'm going to go with what I had before they took him out of the damn lineup. Giancarlo is over total bases, and that's all I got. What are your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, Giancarlo is playing tomorrow. Paul Goldschmidt is playing tomorrow. Dominant against lefties. You're going to be seeing Cody Bellinger. Cody went deep today, right? You've been seeing much better swings. I'm expecting that to continue into tomorrow. And I would love to see Cody Bellinger higher up in the order, where maybe you could even see a situation where he's leading off. I feel that Tyler Anderson doesn't necessarily throw hard. We might see Jason Dominguez start tomorrow as well from the right side. Maybe that's a smart decision. Maybe it's not. But I have been saying the Yankees have to play him if you want to develop Dominguez. So I'm going to roll with Cody Bellinger over 1.5 total bases. And I'm going to stick with that.
I like it. It is worth mentioning Cody Bellinger has 2 home runs against Tyler Anderson. So
he's had a longer career than a lot of people realize. He's been around. He's got some good numbers around baseball. And he's been traded a couple times. Like, he's been traded right to the Cubs, and then he's now here in the AL. He's been around. So he's got some experience. That's the one thing. Cody looks young, right? And he's still right in the prime of his career, but he tends to have a lot of experience against guys. We're hoping it matters tomorrow enough for the Yankees to score some damn runs. I know today we had 2. We're going to need more than that. I don't want a close game. I want the Yankees to get the monkey off their back. Cody Bellinger, maybe leave the yard again. Who knows? Let's go win a ball game, for the love of God.
Yeah, for all that is holy. Okay.
Right.
So put in the comments section after this thing ends, Quentin Tarantino will know that you sat through a Quentin Tarantino level, podcast here. Not saying production wise, but just how long this thing. This is what is it? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Never saw that.
Oh my God. Well, there you go. that's a recommendation. Check that movie out.
Okay.
But that's going to do it. So we appreciate you guys. Man, we really appreciate you guys because I did not want to record. Like, obviously, I'm always going to record, but I was like, yeah, I did not want to record today. And somehow this ended up being the longest episode in our history aside from the World Series one.
Yeah, so it was a long while. So thank you guys so much for all the supers. It took us a while to get through them. We kept our promise. We got through all of them. Thank you guys a ton for all the support, all our new members. You guys are greatly appreciated. Becoming members, and of course, members that continue, because I know they don't necessarily give the returning members a jingle the way they should. But thank you guys as well. And of course, like this video.
Yes, and subscribe, because we're getting closer to 7,000. We're actually 94 away. So
mainly. Yeah, we'd love that.